Hello. We're going to get started really out of the respect for everyone's time. The goal is during these hearings, and we have many, is to hear from as many people as possible. And in order to do that, we are extremely respectful of the time that's everyone that's here. So there's a little clock on the wall, a 2-minute time. My dad always told me if you can't say what you have to say in 2 minutes, you're really not saying anything. So I see your hand, and I know you want 3 or 4 minutes, but it's 2. Okay. Yes.
That's the applicant's presentation.
If it's, this may be the first hearing you've been here in Borough Hall while I'm Borough President? Okay, I don't do free advertisement and I don't do things that are fair, but I do make the calls on how we're doing the hearing. And so I heard you, but that is up here is the presentation of the person that's going to be speaking. So I'm not advertising. I don't come to hearings with my mind made up. I come to hearings to hear from the public. That's part of their presentation. And they're going to show their presentation, then we can take it down. But I think you need to see a visual of the presentation, okay? So, again, as I stated, we want everyone to adhere to the 2 minutes. We know that these topics can be extremely passionate, but the only way we can get through it, where we respect each other's time, is by allowing everyone to adhere to the 2 minutes. I'm here to do the opening. I have several other things going on in the district tonight, in the borough tonight that I have to go to. Ingrid Martin, my senior advisor here, who's the number 2 in charge of here at Borough Hall, she's going to sit through the hearing. After the hearing, Richard, who's in charge of our land use here in the building, is going to sit down with his team and brief me on the entire hearing. Over to the right is Joe. Joe is filming the entire hearing. I am going to go through exactly and listen to all of those who have an opinion on what we should do with this project. I understand the impact of this project on the area. I know it's part of the long-standing conversation. I've had several meetings around this, and so my goal is to come to the right decision. In areas where I think development is important, I support. In areas that I think is not good, I let it be known. As many of you know, the Brooklyn Library site over on Cadman Plaza was something that I voted against because I thought it was not the right fit for that area. So I take my time, hear from the public, hear from the developers, and I come to the best decision that I believe I can do for the borough of Brooklyn. Okay? I'm going to turn over now to Ms. Martin, who's going to read the opening parts of this hearing. And so when you see me depart, it's not out of disrespect for this topic, but I have other things going on in the borough tonight.
Thank you, Borough President Adams. Good evening. Again, my name is Ingrid P. Lewis Martin. I am the Senior Advisor to Brooklyn Borough President Eric L. Adams. It's indeed an honor for me to preside this evening in his...
Give me 1 minute, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was just informed by Richard that this is going to be an ongoing loop, and I told him I don't want that to happen, so that we're going to turn this off now, okay? Joe?
Thank you, Borough President Adams. So in the absence of the Borough President, it's indeed an honor for me to preside this evening on the dais. I have my colleague in government, Richard Berrick, who is the Director of Land Use, and his assistant, Ina, is also with us. So to make sure that I don't forget anything, I'll read the script for you. Please note that this hearing is being recorded to comply with the public law of transparency. As a large crowd is expected to gather this evening, we cannot guarantee that all attendees will be able to sit in on the hearing in the hearing room due to the fire code restrictions. So that means that we can only have a limited amount of people in this room. I believe the capacity is approximately 200. We're just about at that capacity. In order to ensure that everyone who wants to participate in the hearing has an opportunity to do such, we will be having a simulcast downstairs in the Borough Presidents Conference Room, as well as in our community room located on the first floor. President Adams, as you all are aware, knows that it is of utmost importance that everyone's voice is heard. Every member of our community must be heard in a productive and respectful manner. That's vital in order for all of us to get our points across. That is why the Borough President hosts a ULURP meeting at Borough Hall every single time without exception. We ask those who are watching but not speaking to observe the hearing from the first floor community room in the Borough President's Conference Room in order to allow speakers access to the podium when their names are called. Those who arrive late but sign up to speak will be directed to the overflow spaces. We ask those who have already testified to follow the hearing in the spaces where it is being simulcast so that later speakers can make their way to the courtroom. Again, we anticipate a large number of speakers for tonight's hearing. In order to reduce the expected wait time, we will limit each speaker remarks to 2 minutes. To ensure a smooth flow of speakers and to maximize the number of people who are able to testify, we ask that the audience refrain from applauding or commenting after each speaker. We hope to avoid any delays that would prevent anyone signed up from testifying or lead speakers to leave before their name is called. Borough President Adams wants all speakers to have an opportunity to be heard. This hearing will be available for viewing on Borough President Adams's website, brooklyn-u-s-a.org, or on the One Brooklyn channel on YouTube. For those wishing to provide longer testimony beyond their 2-minute allotment this evening, as well as for online viewers of this hearing or attendees who have elected not to speak tonight, Borough President Adams encourages having comments submitted to Ask Brooklyn at brooklynbp.nyc.gov to Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov through the month of May. Everyone's comments, both spoken and written, will be reviewed and incorporated into the Brooklyn Borough President's final recommendation on this item. Thank you. Please call the item and let us begin.
Calendar item number 1, 180216 ZMK, 180217 ZRK, 180218 ZSK.
These applications submitted by New York City Educational Construction Fund and 80 Flatbush Avenue LLC pursuant to sections 197-C and 201 of the New York City Charter for zoning map and text amendments and other land use actions intended to facilitate development of the block bounded by Flatbush Avenue, Skirmahorn Street, and 3rd Avenue located within the special downtown Brooklyn district, consisting of 2 new mixed commercial, community facility, and residential developments that would replace the existing Khalil Gibran International Academy Public High School, henceforth known as KGIA, after a new larger facility is constructed, as well as a new elementary school, both intended to share a gymnasium. In addition to school uses, the proposed development would provide for approximately 700 units of market rate housing and 200 units of affordable housing, approximately 200,000 square feet of commercial space, 42,000 square feet of retail space, including a section of the existing KGIA building intended to be retained, as well as more than 10,000 square feet of cultural space also within the existing KGIA building. The zoning map amendment would seek to change the block from a C6-2 to a C6-9 district. A percentage of the residential units constructed in the second phase would be permanently affordable according to mandatory inclusionary housing regulations. The permitted massing of the buildings would be pursuant to a special bulk permit massing envelope. Typically required off-street accessory parking requirements is being requested to be waived due to the project's location in a transit zone, and loading berth requirements are being requested to be reduced. The project is proposed to proceed in 2 phases in order to permit continued occupancy by KGIA until this new facility is complete. The first phase will result in the completion of the 2 schools and a mixed-use building fronting Flatbush Avenue and State Street. The second phase will be developed along 3rd Avenue with segments of the existing KGIA building to remain at the corner of Skirmahorn and State Streets. Given that the applicants have presented the proposal multiple times to the community, originally, Richard has suggested that the proposal be looped so that people who were unfamiliar with it could see it on a continuous basis. President Adams has decided that it will play one time and then that will be the end of it. Brooklyn Community Board 2 will vote on this application on May 9th, 2018. Borough President Eric L. Adams will hold off on making any decisions until he hears from the Community Board. We will now begin calling speakers on this application. As a reminder, each speaker will have 2 minutes, note the clock, please, to testify. To accommodate all who wish to speak, speakers should limit testimony to the allotted time, and audience members should refrain from applause or comments. Once testimony has been given, speakers should make their way downstairs to the community room or to the conference room so that those who are waiting to speak may proceed to the courtroom. There are several staff members in the room who will assist you in this process. So Richard will call our first group of speakers. Thank you.
So before I call speakers, I want to acknowledge in the audience we have representatives from Councilmember Stephen Levin, Glamani Bravo Lopez, and from Comptroller Stringer, we have Anayeli Gomez.
Welcome. And we have a team member named Jason from the Office of Senator Velman at Montgomery. Welcome.
So our first speaker will be Jennifer Maldonado from the Education Construction Fund, followed by Cynthia Salette, followed by AJyres from the application, followed by Peter Salette and Jared De La Valle from the application.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Maldonado. I'm the Executive Director of the Educational Construction Fund. The mission of ECF is to build safe, secure learning environments for New York City public school students. The fund increases the capacity of the New York City Department of Education to construct new school facilities, thereby increasing the number of seats for the entire school system. ECF is a financing and development vehicle, and its sole purpose is to construct public school facilities for DOE's exclusive use. ECF does not receive budget appropriations from the federal, state, or local government. 100% of ECF's income is derived from revenue from private developers. The fund encourages comprehensive neighborhood development by constructing mixed-use real estate projects which feature new school facilities. ECF has used this model to create over 18,000 new school seats, 4,500 housing units, and over 1.2 million square feet of office space without negative impact on the city's capital budget. ECF's model has been praised as ahead of its time and a precursor to the public-private partnerships now being used all over the country. In fact, in March of this year, the New York City Council issued a report planning to learn the School Building Challenge, which advocated the continuous use of the ECF model. As you're aware, there's a serious shortage of elementary and secondary school seats throughout New York City. In response to the conditions at the KG school necessitating a new high school building for the school, as well as the long-standing demand by the school community to build new schools for District 15, ECF embarked on the 80 Flatbush program. In the course of 2 years, ECF has worked with the development partner Alloy to not only address the needs of the school community, but those of public benefits that would assist the downtown Brooklyn community. I would ask that you look to the overall project for what it can accomplish: schools, housing, jobs. Sorry, I didn't think there.
If Howard
you.
Collins
Thank
could also come up. Next speaker, Cynthia.
Hi. My name is Cynthia Salette, and I'm here to voice my opposition to 80 Flatbush. Vote no without recommendations. As a mother of an elementary school child, I have grave concerns about placing an elementary school at Flatbush and State Street. Combining very small children, as young as 5 years old, with one of the busiest streets in Brooklyn is a recipe for disaster. Tragedy can strike on much less crowded Brooklyn streets, as we have recently seen in Park Slope. All the elementary schools nearby are nestled on quiet streets with big, beautiful playgrounds. Instead, Alloy wants to put our children near a street that has had 3 to 5 pedestrian accidents at State and Flatbush and 3rd and Flatbush this year alone. And with pedestrians from all these giant new buildings, 27 in downtown Brooklyn alone, not counting 80 Flatbush. How can we keep our children safe? Do you want to add 5, 6, and 7-year-old children exiting school full of energy, unaware of the danger created by a car-infested area? I have walked past State and Flatbush at 2:30 p.m. many times, and I am fearful of what adding young children to this corner will lead to. There will also be no street-level courtyard playground for these children, unlike every other school in the neighborhood. Children are released from school in the courtyard so they can run around outside after sitting for most of the day. Alloy is going to put this playground on the roof. Parents are already complaining about trying to get their children across Flatbush. Mountains of trash piled street side combined with the wind tunnels these buildings create make it a harrowing experience. I have seen a woman carrying her baby knocked over by a car turning from 3rd Avenue on Flatbush. We can do better than Flatbush and State Street as a location for a school. Do we care so little about the safety of our children? I would never allow my 8-year-old to attend a school in such a dangerous location. Thank you.
If May Yu could join the speakers, AJyres.
Thank you. My name is AJyres. I'm the president of Alloy Development. I'm here with my partner, Jared DeValle, CEO, as well as some other colleagues. We responded to the Educational Construction Fund's request for expression of interest nearly 2 years ago because we were excited to work on a public-private development that could provide multiple public benefits and address our growing borough's needs. We continue to believe in the housing, schools, and cultural space that this project provides for. We believe that the project site on Flatbush Avenue across from Atlantic Terminal is ideally suited for this type and scale of development. Our job is to make the project as thoughtfully designed, environmentally sustainable, and equitable for those who live and work here as possible. That effort has come to date through years of public dialogue and more than 100 meetings with local stakeholders. Tonight is another opportunity to listen. We would like to thank the Borough President for making this forum and for welcoming us. After tonight, we will continue to listen and make time to work with our neighbors to improve the project and encourage each and every one of you to reach out to us directly with any questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns. Thank you.
Okay, Sandy Barbosa could join the speakers. Peter Salette.
Hi, I'm Peter Salette, and I live on State Street, and I'm here to voice my opposition to 80 Flatbush. Here's what our local officials have said about the project. State Senator Montgomery, noting that she joins with the Borum Hill Association, the Fort Greene Association, and the Society for Clinton Hill, writes, I stand with my constituents and the community in saying enough is enough. We are tired of the destruction of the social fabric of our neighborhoods and the displacement of longtime residents. I am not against development. I am against socially irresponsible, out-of-scale overdevelopment. Assemblywoman Simon states, over the years, I have observed many changes in our neighborhoods, including small businesses being pushed out and skyrocketing rents. This community has organized against projects that would have been detrimental to its character and its people, but we have also successfully worked with developers to enhance the community. I strongly oppose this proposal, given that the negative impacts on the community vastly outweigh the benefits. Assemblyman Mosley states, I'm gravely concerned over Alloy's proposed development and the negative impacts it would have on the entire borough of Brooklyn. What we have is not a housing crisis, but rather an affordable housing crisis. As such, this proposal must be halted, as it stands against everything our communities have fought so hard to preserve. Public Advocate James states that this project will be totally unprecedented and will open up the floodgates to out-of-scale development, which will overshadow the brownstone community I grew up in. My position right now is that this project should be dead on arrival. And the CB2 Land Use Committee voted unanimously against the project without recommendations. That's right. After 18 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars spent lobbying our local officials, Alloy could not get one person on the very diverse land use committee to vote even no with recommendations, let alone yes. They did not get one vote on the land use committee. I strongly encourage you, Mr. Borough President, listen to our local officials and vote no without recommendations. Thank you.
Coming up would be Alexandria well, not sure if I got that name correctly. So Howard Collins now.
Thank you. My name is Howard Collins, president of the Borum Hill Association. Our position is the 80 Flatbush development location, not being a full city block, is being asked to do too much and in a way that greatly disrupts the residential area nearby. The ECF is interested in maximizing square footage and doing as much as they can, but the project is blind to its surroundings. Therefore, BHA's main point of opposition is the tripling of the floor area ratio. After many meetings with Borum Hill and nearby Fort Greene residents, we came to the following conclusions. We need intelligent development that blends downtown with Borum Hill. That the proposal and the EIS ignore our neighborhood's low-rise residential context, and that the formulaic maximizing of FAR to 18 while all of downtown is limited to 12 is not the correct location at this particular site. Last December, we sent a letter to DCP and we wanted to discuss the following points. Our opposition to the tripling of the FAR is out of scale and a bad precedent for Brooklyn. We wanted a real conversation about density on the block and its effects on our quality of life. We asked that the DCP address transitional zoning. We demanded R6B townhouses on the north side of the street to create comparable scale and a 50-foot setback. The elimination of the State Street loading dock and keeping trash off of State Street. Also, a 50-foot setback from 3rd Avenue for any new building over 4 stories. We suggested that one tower be built, only one, glare-free, and we certainly support the building of a new high school for the Khalil Gibran students. We opposed the elementary school as a bad location due to all the local traffic. We also asked that the high school be relocated during 8 years of construction. Therefore, we ask you to vote no without recommendations and begin a real conversation with the community that resides here. Is this project DCP's idea, quote, transition between high-rise core of the central business district and adjacent residential neighborhoods? And I will skip the last. Thank you very much for your patience.
Next speaker to join us up front, Philip Sapiera, May Yu.
That's right. Good evening, Borough President Adams. My name is May Yu. I'm the Senior Director of Real Estate and Economic Development for the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And on behalf of Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, I would like to express our strong support of the 80 Flatbush project. This project will bring critical infrastructure to Brooklyn with 2 new public schools, market rate and affordable housing, a new cultural and community facility, and very importantly, Class A office space. And the project delivers all this public benefit without the use of any city capital funds at one of the most transit-rich locations in New York City. As many of you know, the city's population hit a record 8.6 million last year, at the highest rate of growth we've seen since the 1920s. Brooklyn has led that growth with unprecedented residential and commercial expansion over the last 10 years. The area surrounding the intersection of Flatbush, 4th, and Atlantic Avenues has been an active hub dating back to the 1929. And with its extensive access to transit, we believe 80 Flatbush is a particularly appropriate location for this growth. Given this connectivity, 80 Flatbush is not only attractive to residents, but also to entrepreneurs and businesses of various sizes. Over the past few years, downtown Brooklyn has seen tremendous growth in 2 key economic sectors: information technology and arts and entertainment. Those are important sectors for high-paying jobs and to keep the vibrancy and identity of Brooklyn that we know it is here today. Additionally, the average lease sizes of those businesses are just around 8,000 square feet. Because of this, we believe there's enormous opportunity here for smaller businesses and startups to take advantage of the 200,000 square feet of office space planned as part of Alloy's project. As many of you also have heard, 80 Flatbush will also bring much-needed schools and educational facilities with a replacement for Khalil Gibran, as well as a new elementary school, both with brand new modern facilities. The project will not only, thank you.
Okay. If Andrew Howlick can come up, and next speaker is Sandy Barbosa.
Okay, I'm Sandi Barbosa representing ABBA, an advocacy group for Atlantic Avenue from 4th Avenue to Hicks Street. Many reports and studies that I have referenced at the end of my report respected the low-scale neighborhoods that surround the downtown Brooklyn core and recommended reduced heights in order to protect the neighborhood character. The 2004 Downtown Brooklyn rezoning FEIS included a contextual transition zone which provided reasonable height restrictions between the commercial district and the historic residential neighborhoods of Boerum Hill, Brooklyn Heights, Cobble Hill, and Fort Greene. The current scheme by Alloy Development and ECF to drastically increase the zoning to FAR 18 on the 80 Flatbush site is a clear abrogation of the agreement with our communities that the Department of City Planning presented in the special Downtown Brooklyn rezoning and the 2004 Downtown Brooklyn rezoning. City Planning and ECF have encouraged spot zoning for Alloy without any dialogue with the affected community. They are clearly undermining the transitional height limits achieved through the contextual zoning. This spot zoning is not part of the long-term vision to develop Brooklyn's downtown as evidenced by the numerous reports and studies. This is about zoning for sale with density and height trade-offs far in excess of any public benefits to schools or affordable housing. Borough President Adams, we urge you to join with Community Board 2 and the neighborhoods that will be most impacted by this irresponsible out-of-scale development scheme. We ask that you uphold the past commitments made to the community by supporting development that will be consistent with the existing transition zone on the 80 Flatbush site and not ask Brooklynites to bear the burden of the many impacts that we know will occur if this inappropriate spot zoning is passed. Thank you.
I'll take a moment to make some acknowledgments. In the room joining us are representatives from the Office of Councilmember Steve Levin, Glomani Bravo, the Office of the Mayor Community Affairs Unit, Daniel Aberson, from the Office of Assemblymember Joanne Simon, Susanna Pasquato, Tonio? Okay. And we have former District Leader Renee Colombo also in the room with us this evening.
So if Ronald Janoff can come up to join the speakers in Alexandria. Escal.
And we have another representative.
That's the name that's supposed to be next. Alexandria can't quite get. Yeah, that if that's you, you're next.
We have another representative from the Office of Assemblymember Walter Mosley, Ms. Gigi Davis Elliott.
Hi, my name is Alex Escamilla. I'm a longtime Brooklyn resident, a new mother, and a small business owner. I've lived in Brooklyn for over 15 years, and I'm rooted here now more than ever, now that I'm both a parent and a small business owner. My partner, who works in the nonprofit sector, and I are dedicated to growing our family here, but are more and more stressed by the increased cost of renting, our lack of options for purchasing, and overpopulated schools. New York City has an affordable housing crisis that can start to be alleviated with the right type of development. Therefore, I'm right here to support this project, even though it is a large one, but it's located in a transit-oriented, high-density commercial neighborhood. By guaranteeing affordable units, working families might have an opportunity to live in quality housing located in convenient locations, as well as having access to new, much-needed schools. Not to mention, at least there is some consideration towards increased school capacity and partnerships with local community organizations and cultural institutions. We can't solve the affordable housing crisis by only rezoning deep outer borough Brooklyn neighborhoods. All neighborhoods have to contribute to this, especially those with the infrastructure to support new residents. Thank you.
Okay, joining the speakers could be Kirk Goodrich. Next speaker is Philip.
Hi, I'm Philip Superior. I have lived in the Fort Greene neighborhood since, Mr. Borough President, thank you, by the way, for the hearing. I'm sorry I didn't start that way. I've lived in the Fort Greene neighborhood since 1976, and in many ways have worked to nurture and help and grow the neighborhood and the community, et cetera. And I'm amazed, frankly, by some of the propaganda that's been promulgated by the developers of this project. For example, one of the things that we saw in those slides that you finally stopped was that this project was environmentally sustainable. I would argue that this project is distinctly not environmentally sustainable. It's in the neighborhood of Borum Hill, a low-rise brownstone community. It sits across the street from One Hanson Place and casts shadows on that iconic building. It casts shadows on and parts of Borum Hill and parts of Fort Greene and downtown Brooklyn, et cetera. Furthermore, we've had an enormous amount of development in downtown Brooklyn. You just have to go and see all those tall towers where the rentals, by the way, are so expensive that people can't afford them. There's now a surplus in the rental market. I also just want to say that they said also, the fellow who spoke for Alloy tonight said that they were across from the Atlantic Terminal. He forgot to mention it was across from One Hanson Place and in Borum Hill as well. We're not opposed to development. We're looking for the kind of development that's going to enhance our neighborhoods. We want classrooms, but 200 classrooms doesn't begin to address the numbers of kids who need school rooms, et cetera, in our neighborhood. And furthermore, all the 700 commercial apartments in that development are going to provide school kids for that area and not address the poor and African American kids who need more school rooms in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
If Naomi Dickerson could join the speakers. Next speaker is Andrew.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Holwick, Senior Vice President for the New York Building Congress, and I'm pleased to offer the support of the Building Congress for Alloy Development's proposed program at 80 Flatbush. Our president, Carlos Chasura, would have been here personally, but is serving on the Charter Revision Commission, which has a hearing in the Bronx this evening. Alloy Development's proposal for 80 Flatbush is an amazing opportunity to create substantial new housing available to all income levels at a major new cultural space and build modern school facilities at a dynamic crossroads of New York City. In addition to its many clear public benefits, the Building Congress has been urging for the creation of vital new economic centers for the city outside of Manhattan. 80 Flatbush will be an anchor for just such a new center. It is critical to note that 80 Flatbush will include 200,000 square feet of new Class A office space. This reflects an important new dynamic in our collective economy. New York City has added hundreds of thousands of new jobs in the recent years and has the highest employment in its history. Employers are seeking out parts of our city to establish job centers that simply did not exist before. Downtown Brooklyn stands poised to become the third major central business district of the city and the first outside Manhattan. 80 Flatbush can be a part of this future. The direct and indirect economic benefits of this kind of office investment are immense. It supports direct employment, indirect employment, spending, and helps pave the way for a future of increasing job growth and economic opportunity for all. Alloy Development is presenting a once-in-a-generation opportunity to develop a multiple-use program designed to be a part of the community, include its surrounding neighbors, while taking the city to the next level with new schools, housing, retail, community center, and commercial office space. I urge the Borough President to support this project, a defining project, not just for the borough, but for New York City. Thank you.
If the speakers can be joined by Laurie Raphael, and the next speaker is Ronald.
Good evening. My name is Ron Janoff. I'm the coordinator of the Rockwell Place Community Garden on Flatbush Avenue, directly north of the proposed Alloy development. Our 38 member volunteers have voted unanimously to oppose the rezoning after learning from Alloy's environmental impact statement that our public amenity will be irremediably damaged by the shadow of their development, giving us less than 4 hours of sunlight daily, a fact that is greatly supported by Professor Brent Porter of Pratt and his new shadow studies. The garden was founded in 1980 on a vacant triangle at a time when Brooklyn had been left for dead. In the early 1990s, the garden was vandalized, Borough President Howard Golden provided the garden with a grant that allowed us to protect it with a cyclone fence. Along with the Parks Department and nearby gardeners, the garden was restored. In the 1990s, the late Renata Kammerer on the Parks Committee of Community Board 2 helped the garden become one of the first 17 community gardens in New York put forward as an official Parks Department Green Thumb garden. At that time, the garden went through this same entire ULURP process and received the strong endorsement of the board and the Borough President's office, for which we remain deeply grateful. When the MTA demolished the garden in 2005 to build the Rockwell fan plant underneath, they were required to rebuild the garden, which they did in 2008. Parks and the MTA assumed at the time that the zoning of the block to the south, the block in question, had already been decided in 2004, assuring the garden of summer sunlight. More than $1 million of public funds went into the restoration, something we could never imagine on our annual budget of $600. In 2015, we received a Certificate of Excellence from Borough President Marty Markowitz to mark the 35th birthday of the garden at our annual summer solstice celebration of the sunlight. Please join us this June 21st and join us in rejecting the rezoning and the Alloy proposal and save our sunlight. Thank you.
If Jason Solomon
Please,
could
we're going
join
to ask you to
speakers.
refrain from clapping so we can expedite speakers. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kirk Goodrich.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Borough President. My name is Kirk Goodrich. I'm a partner in the real estate firm called Monadnock Development, LLC. We do a variety of things, but creating large-scale affordable housing is a significant part of our business and has been my passion for 30 years. I'm here this evening to speak in support of 80 Flatbush Avenue. I decided to attend the hearing this evening because I love Brooklyn, I love creating affordable housing, and I believe deeply in the character, skills, and vision of the developers Alloy and Fifth Avenue Committee. We work with Alloy as partners on several projects and know them to be very talented architects and developers. More importantly, as a team, they harbor a profound desire to bring exquisite and thoughtful design to bear in the affordable housing world. As a beacon for affordable housing and justice, Brooklyn has no greater advocate and champion than Fifth Avenue Committee and Michelle Deleuze. Anyone who needs to be convinced of this hasn't been paying attention for the last 40 years. In preparing for tonight, I heard that some have been troubled by the height of the building and many other issues. I don't want to diminish these concerns, but tonight I want to offer a different perspective. When we leave this meeting and head home to get a good night's rest in our own beds, 60,000 people will do the same in emergency homeless shelters. 22,000 of them will be kids. As a passionate advocate of affordable housing, I want everybody here to think about that tonight, to think about the folks who won't have the same opportunity that we have. And there are a lot of people out there who don't know our names, whose names we don't know, who need us to care deeply tonight and in the future. And I want to encourage everybody tonight to think about those things and to support the project. Thank you.
If Spencer Helweave could join the speakers. We have Naomi Dickerson now as next speaker.
This is a concept. We should have community-controlled development. Naomi Dickerson from the Fort Greene Association. Fort Greene Association has a history of community participation in neighborhood preservation. In all cases, we support development with participation of the people who live in the area. This includes Fort Greene, and it certainly includes Borum Hill, and certainly 80 Flatbush. 80 Flatbush is being subjected to development without the input of its residents in the process at its inception throughout rather than way after it's launched.
Okay, the speakers will be joined by Greenberg, and the next speaker is Laurie.
Good evening, Borough President and to your staff. Thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Laurie Raphael. I'm a Vice President at the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to express our organization's strong support for the 80 Flatbush project. This project will create 3,000 jobs, strengthen the commercial corridor of Flatbush Avenue, and provide much-needed Class A office space to Brooklyn. It is imperative that as a borough we manage growth carefully. Considering all the public benefits of this project, 80 Flatbush is an example of the smart development we need, and we urge you to help make this project a reality. Demand for office space downtown is at a record high, driven by tremendous growth in creative businesses and innovation. More and more companies want to base their businesses in downtown Brooklyn, and as a result, commercial vacancy rates are close to 3%, which threatens to slow the area's strong recent job growth. This project will deliver 200,000 square feet of Class A office space, and critically, it is well located on Flatbush Avenue and close to Atlantic Terminal, connecting it to all of New York City and Long Island. Commercial tenants coming to Brooklyn today are looking for space located in vibrant, diverse areas. As a result, the mixed-use nature of the project is attractive. Equally, the commercial floor plates, which are approximately 10,000 square feet, are well-sized for the creative companies coming into the market. In addition to delivering much-needed office space, we strongly support the project's proposed affordable housing and new school facilities. We are in a severe housing crisis, and 80 Flatbush will bring 900 units of new housing, 200 of which will be permanently affordable. In addition, the aging facilities at Khalil Gibran International School cannot meet the current needs of the Arab American community it serves. Providing them with a new school shows our commitment to educating all of our children to diversity and speaks to the strength of our multicultural heritage. Alloy has proven itself attentive to community needs, having held over 100 community stakeholder meetings. Thank you.
Representing State Senator Velman at Montgomery will be Jason Salmon, but the next speaker to come up will be Jake Schmitt.
Thank you again, Borough President Adams. The senator is in Albany. I will read a statement on her behalf. As I stated at the March 28th Community Board 2 hearing, I am unequivocally against using public resources to support the proposed development of 80 Flatbush Avenue. In his 2016 annual financial report, Comptroller Scott Stringer notes the largest amount of tax breaks were granted to housing and economic development projects. These tax abatements totaled $3 billion in lost revenue. I commend the Comptroller for putting together comprehensive annual financial reports that include the amount of subsidies and tax abatements afforded to private in New York City. I have written to the Comptroller Stringer respectfully requesting a detailed report analyzing tax abatements granted to housing and economic development projects in my district. The 25th Senate District is a microcosm of the rampant development that has taken place throughout Brooklyn. The residents of my district deserve a public accounting of the impact of this tax abatement boondoggle. For decades, the New York City Housing Authority and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority have been chronically underfunded. At the same time, New York City has granted billions of dollars in tax abatements to private developers. As federal funding continues to decline, and with 60,000 New Yorkers homeless, limited public resources should be targeted to the needs of our people. We as elected officials must work to create innovative and sustainable housing solutions for our communities. Once again, I am not against development. I am against socially irresponsible, out-of-scale overdevelopment. We should not be forced to accept the larger structures, the public subsidy giveaways, the inadequate affordable housing, and our communities living in permanent shadows. In conclusion, we respectfully request Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams stand with our collective constituents in rejecting this proposal. Thank you.
If Roz Copa could join the speakers, the next speaker is Spencer.
Hi. Please don't mistake my brevity for lack of passion, but really it comes down to there's not enough homes in the New York metropolitan area, and this adds 900 homes, 200 permanently affordable. The affordability crisis is not a neighborhood problem, it's not a borough problem, it's a region-wide problem, and we need as many homes as possible to alleviate that crisis. This is right by Atlantic Terminal. I use that terminal two or three times a week. There's a lot of people who need to get in and out of that location. I realize this is a big construction project, but these are the kind of developments we need to alleviate the affordability housing crisis. Thank you.
If the speakers can be joined by William Kendal, and the next speaker is Grant Greenberg.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Grant Greenberg. The Williamsburg Savings Bank building, which sits across the street from the site at 80 Flatbush, is also known as One Hanson Place. It was completed in 1929. It was once the tallest building in the borough at 37 stories. It is amongst the tallest four-sided clock towers in the world. In 1977, the exterior of the Williamsburg Savings Bank building was landmarked by New York City. It was the interior of the building was actually only landmarked in 1995. They thought that the exterior was that distinctive and special that they landmarked it almost 20 years earlier. In the original landmark review, which I have over here, the Landmarks Preservation Commission found that the Williamsburg Savings Bank has a special character, special historical and aesthetic interest, and value as part of the heritage and cultural characteristics of New York City. The building has one of the largest four-faced dial clocks, and the building is a striking symbol of Brooklyn. In 2010, word spread in our neighborhood that the Brooklyn developer Two Trees had purchased the triangular lot between BAM and the property at 80 Flatbush. Many residents were concerned about such a building being built so near the much-loved Williamsburg Savings Bank. As more information spread about the development, we discovered the developer had respectfully weighted the bulk of the proportion of the building away from the One Hanson Place clock tower so that views of the clock tower could be preserved. With additional consultation, the overall height of the building was reduced. When you walk down State Street or Atlantic Avenues, we still have spectacular views of the western face of the clock tower. The building proposed by the developer at 80 Flatbush will forever block these views of this clock. The developer will try to make you believe that they have made significant changes to the facade to make it more sensitive. However, a change of facade material and some minor setbacks on the structure do not solve the fundamental problem that these buildings are just too high. I respectfully ask you to vote against the project without recommendations.
We're also joined by Susanna Pasquato of the State Assembly member Joanne Simon. Speakers should be joined by Sandy Rayburn, and the next speaker is Jake. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Borough President. I'm here to request, as a New Yorker, that you approve this project without delay and as is, for simple reasons of justice and democracy. Brooklyn, like the entire New York region, is in the middle of a housing shortage of historic proportions. Rent burdens in all 5 boroughs have never been higher, and the impact on people's lives is heartbreaking. We have long commutes, strained household budgets, abusive landlords, increased homelessness. I mean, honestly, we're all New Yorkers. We talk about these all the time. The thing is, the cause of this housing shortage isn't really a mystery. It's because every home builder on every project faces an approval process like this, where they're in a room filled with local residents from very nearby who are concerned about anything but building enough housing for people who actually need it. Excuse me? The beneficiaries of a project like this are systematically unrepresented because they're people, for example, elsewhere in Brooklyn who would rather not be outbid for their apartments by people who'd rather live here instead. It's the renters suffering under abusive landlords who shouldn't have so much power because they should have some competition. Frankly, without exaggeration, I can say it's every New Yorker whose rent is too high. Bottom line here is that the problem is fairly simple, but the solution can start right here in this room. So, Borough President Adams, as you consider this vote, I ask you, please, vote in the best interest of Brooklyn, not just in the interest of a few people who are very nearby. Most of the people who need this, they can't be here tonight, but they need your help. Thank you.
If the speakers
Please
could be
refrain from
joined.
clapping. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, sorry. If the speakers could be joined by Alison Weinberg, I believe it is, and the next speaker is Roz.
Hi, I'm Roz Copa. In 1970, my husband Norman and I bought a house on Dean Street in Borum Hill. The house was in need of total renovation, and the area was run down and crime was rampant. Our parents thought we were crazy. The things that drew us to the area were affordability, small-scale living, great transportation, and diversity of incomes, races, and ethnicity. So we bought a wreck of a house, and with a lot of sweat equity, we renovated the building while also making efforts to restore the neighborhood. Working with our block association, the Borum Hill Association, we pressed the police to crack down on crime, the sanitation department to clean up the area, and to get trees planted and help improve the local schools and library. After 40 years, our work and the work of many, many others have succeeded far beyond what we could ever have imagined. Unfortunately, Borum Hill has lost some of the things that we prized. We don't miss the drug dealers, the abandoned cars, or the prostitutes, but we see that it has become unaffordable for the average Brooklynite. We have lost a lot of the diversity in population, and we are in danger of being swallowed up by sky-high luxury towers. I currently live across the street from this proposed project. The building will house 900 apartments in 2 towers that will take 7 years to construct. It is totally out of scale and context for the brownstone block that it abuts. The construction will be a nightmare for us, blocking traffic in an already congested neighborhood. The garbage will overflow the sidewalks. The residents of 900 apartments will overwhelm the subways. The water and sewer lines are stretched to capacity already. I am not against reasonable development. I realize Brooklyn is now a desirable destination, and new buildings will go up. I am in favor of affordable housing, but I am not in favor of a project that will overwhelm and destroy the neighborhood that we have worked so hard to build. On a final note, I have sat in on some of Alloy's community meetings. Well, anyway, thank you.
We'll be joined by Professor Brent Porter. The next speaker is William Kendal.
Good evening, everyone. I'm speaking on behalf of the New York City Department of Education. 80 Flatbush will create a much-needed 350-seat elementary school, and so the New York City Department of Education supports this project. With the addition of this building, even including the additional seats that we project coming from the 80 Flatbush building, we anticipate a net gain of 164 elementary school seats that can be used to alleviate existing overcrowding and projected overcrowding in the district and surrounding zones. District 15 as a whole faces capacity challenges at the elementary school level. Over the past 5 years, elementary school enrollment has increased by 15%. The majority of elementary schools in the district are overutilized, and many have zone wait lists. 80 Flatbush can play a part in alleviating the overcrowding seen in these schools. In addition, there are approximately 6,000 other new or permitted housing units in the surrounding areas, which will contribute to increased overcrowding in those zones surrounding 80 Flatbush. If this project moves forward, the DOE will work with the community through the CEC and other community organizations to develop plans for how to admit students in a way that will address district needs and priorities. So enrollment could be a standard zone, but it could also be a shared zone, a choice school with special programming to attract a diverse student body, or give priority to certain populations such as English language learners, temporary housing, students living in temporary housing, or students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Given the existing overcrowding challenges and the projected growth in the area, the New York City Department of Education supports this project. Thank you.
Okay, speakers will be joined by Winston Hammond. The next speaker is Sandi. Is Sandi right in here?
Thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts and opposition. I'm a 28-year resident of Fort Greene and a member of the newly formed organization Preserve Our Brooklyn Neighborhoods. I live a handful of blocks across the border from the proposed 80 Flatbush project, and I come bearing a gift for the Borough President, this wonderful book called Zoned Out by by Tom Angotti and Sylvia Morse. And I think it's very instructive. I'm not going to list the onerous effects likely to result from Alloy's grandiose scheme. Others will speak to them and have. Instead, I wish to address the lack of comprehensive planning, the cumulative impacts which are not being taken into consideration beyond 80 Flatbush. As the Borough President, his mandate goes beyond the parish divide. The Borough President is the Brooklyn Borough President of all Brooklyn and weighs in on these matters for the greater good of all neighborhoods. The truly mindless left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Wild West overdevelopment has allowed a proposed mega tower invasion of contextually zoned communities such as Fort Greene and Clinton Hill. The ad hoc increased density permitted for developers rich in money and lobbying influence over city agencies like the City Planning Commission has reached an intolerable level. The mayor's quick fix of one-size-fits-all mandatory inclusionary housing has overwhelmed our infrastructure, which has not kept apace. There's a self-serving denial to acknowledge that the Atlantic Center Barclays transit hub has become unbearable and has become inadequate. With more than $500,000 spent by Alloy to pay lobbyists to target electeds such as the borough president, the council members Levin and Cumbo, as well as the City Planning Commission, they have the borough president's ear. Do we? All I have is my voice and the zoned out book and the hope that the conscience of the borough president will say no to this development.
If the speakers can be joined by John Crow, and the next speaker is Alison. Thank you.
Hello, I'm representing Alison Weinberg, and I will be reading her statement letter. I'm a Fort Greene resident and mom and the executive director of Recess, a local arts nonprofit. I'm here tonight to share my experience working with Alloy Development and to talk about the role of arts and culture in changing lives and strengthening communities. Recess is a small not-for-profit organization that was founded in 2009. We met Alloy a couple years ago. Alloy controlled a vacant rental space on Schumerhorn and was eager to activate the space through cultural programming. The partnership we created has been surprising, unexpected, and has greatly surpassed our expectations. Alloy donated their storefront to us rent-free for 2 years and paid thousands of dollars for the fit-out and provided all the operational funds for us to run our new program called Recess Assembly. Assembly is an artist-led diversion program for court-involved youth in Brooklyn. The program offers those caught up in the justice system an inroad to art and connections to working artists and serves as an alternative to incarceration while empowering young people to take charge of their own life story and imagine a positive future. Once participants complete the program, prosecutors may close and seal their cases, allowing youth to avoid an adult record. Participants may stay involved at Recess through paid long-term engagement. I've gotten to learn about their 80 Flatbush project through our partnership and want to underscore Thank you.
I'm going to modify the order of speakers, bring up the representative of Assemblymember Joanne Simon, Susanna Pasquato, and be followed by, no, okay. And I just want to acknowledge another representative from Councilmember Levin, Elizabeth Adams.
Hi, my name is Susanna Pasquato. I'm the Chief of Staff for Assemblymember Joanne Simon. She is in Albany today. I will be reading brief remarks from her, and more detailed remarks are available on our website. Thank you to the Borough President's Office and his staff for having us. Testimony. I represent the 52nd Assembly District, which includes Borum Hill, the neighborhood in which the proposed project is sited, and the surrounding areas. I'm also a neighbor of the proposed project. I've lived in Borum Hill for 35 years. After careful review of the project and consideration of community feedback, substantial community feedback, I strongly oppose the proposal given that the negative impacts on the community vastly outweigh the benefits. I have several concerns, including the project's gratuitous demand for an unprecedented floor area ratio of 18, triple the allowance, the pressure on traffic, transit, and congestion, the project's exacerbation of the woefully inadequate open space available to residents of the Borum Hill and downtown Brooklyn area, and the resulting shadows, the mischaracterization of the location of this project, the pressure this proposal will have on the physical and social infrastructure, including but not limited to school seats and overburdened transit, the missed opportunity to create real affordable housing, the ability to handle the massive amount of waste and environmental materials, urban design. Further, I am disappointed that the community has expressed numerous concerns that have not adequately been addressed in this proposal.
Please refrain from clapping.
The
please.
project would significantly change the character and quality of life of Borum Hill and downtown Brooklyn. Therefore, I urge ECF and Alloy to work with the community to create a project that serves its needs. In my experience with the development in and around downtown Brooklyn, two things are clear. Each project wants to outdo each other, and if one developer gets a variance in height, the next developer thinks they're entitled to the same variance. That is not acceptable urban planning. Thank you.
The next speaker is Professor Brent Porter. Coming up would be Mason Mohammed, the PTA president of school.
Okay, Brent Porter, architect, longtime Clinton Hill resident, and professor, actually my 44th year, School of Architecture at Pratt Institute, where I head the Christina Porter Memorial Lighting Lab, in which this is the 14th major study of a proposed high-rise in its surrounding community. Most recently, Vinegar Hill, as some of you know. The main thing that we started with was frankly to really look at the entire neighborhood by going hour by hour throughout the winter and really studying what was happening. We have some of the most sophisticated mapping techniques in New York City, and my students have taken every single brownstone and every single high-rise and low-rise and smaller buildings and put into their computer program. The summary, which is covered in our report here, is that basically the shadowing is so much greater because when we went into the topo mapping, Fort Greene rises up toward Fort Greene Park. And so it's really quite different. These are just the major 9, 12, and 3 shadows throughout the year. December 21, March, and September 21, and June 21. In the report, we have an overlay of this so you can put it down on the existing shadowing of existing buildings. In this is a summary throughout the year of the existing building shadow. And on this one, this is a summary of the 2 summaries, actually. The basic 9, 12, and 3 for the proposed building. And then we've added other hours because the key issue, again, you can't see these from back there, but the key issue is the composite shadow that the new 2 buildings will create. In other words, there's places of big gaps that occur now. But this new complex, we've found, will create a huge impact of shadowing. And it will reach all the way up to Fort Greene Park. And we feel that this whole fan of shadowing will hit Fort Greene throughout.
If the speakers could be joined by Deborah Lauder, and the next speaker is Principal Winston Haman.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you to the Borough President's Office for facilitating this venue so we could come together and share our views about this project. Let me also thank some of you who voiced your opinions about our school, and anyone during all these hearings who has voiced an opinion about our school, because it has always been positive. So we know that that's true. My students are here, my parents, my teachers, and so we know that regardless how you feel about this project, you do support us as a school community. So thank you for that. In previous interventions, I have mentioned the fact that it's true. Our facilities are very limited, are really outdated. Our students do not have the facilities that they need to compete in the 21st century. That's absolutely true. But today, I just want to talk to you for 1 minute and 15 seconds about all of the accomplishments that we do with such a facility, right? We are an international baccalaureate school. If you don't know what that is, it's a college level program. It's only a dozen schools like that in the entire city of New York. It's a handful in Brooklyn. We are one of them. So we offer a college level education to our students. We're also closing rapidly the college readiness gap, and we also are going from a 68% graduation rate last year to 81% in 1 year. 13 percentile points in any New York City public school, high school is huge. And the fact is that besides the fact that we serve the art community, we also are true international schools because we serve students from many other walks of life. So the point here is, if we're able to accomplish that with such an old, outdated building, just think for a moment what we can accomplish with a brand new, state-of-the-art facility that really are gonna get my students to compete in the 21st century. So thank you very much. We fully support this project.
If the speakers can be joined by Dan Marks. Next speaker is John.
Hi, John Crow. I'm with the Brooklyn Bears Community Gardens. The Rockwell Place Community Garden stands in full opposition to this zoning change. Our garden has given enough to this city. As Ron mentioned before, the garden was plowed in order for the fan room to be built by the MTA that sucks any noxious air, terrorist attacks, fires, whatever, into that facility. And we were presented with sacrificing our garden, and we agreed to that. That happened in 2005. 2004 is when the zoning change happened for that block of 80 Flatbush. And we were concerned then about what that meant to our sunlight when we heard about that zoning change. But we did the math, and it told us that we would not lose our sunlight. According to this developer, in their own words, shadows from this project would cut direct sunlight in the Rockwell Place Bears Garden from 10 to less than 4 hours a day. There would be significant adverse impacts as a result of the proposed actions. Given the duration and extent of an incremental shadow, the use and character of this open space would be altered, and the health of the vegetation found within the open space could be significantly affected. Their answer to this problem would be, we'll just have to find another place to garden. But beyond this, not only have we sacrificed enough, so has the community. Let's remember, Atlantic Yards project is steps away from this location. So when you talk about putting the density of this project there because there's the Atlantic Terminal, don't forget that if built out, 50,000 people will be moving to Atlantic Yards. 50,000 people are going to stress that space, all right? And let's also talk about affordable housing. It's not low-income housing. This community is being displaced. The low-income people are being displaced. We need low-income housing. Affordable housing is a misnomer. This doesn't present enough. Thank you.
Speakers will be joined by Victoria Cambrares. The next speaker is Mason Mohammed.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mason Mohammed. I'm the president of the Khalil Gibran International Academy PTA. I have 2 children that are currently attending KGIA. My children will not be here to enjoy the new building. They're graduating next year and this year. It's just the fact that they're not going to be in there to enjoy the new building. We still want to see future generation enjoy it. Khalil Gibran International Academy transitioned to a public high school in 2012 and became an IB World School in 2015, making it one of the first public schools in New York City to offer the rigorous IB diploma program. According to the New York City Department of Education Quality Review, the school scored excellent or good on collaborative teachers, trust, rigorous instructions, effective school leadership, and strong family community ties. Research shows that schools strong in these 6 areas are far more likely to improve students' learning. Khalil Gibran was able to achieve all of this in its current building. Imagine what it can do for future generations. Just because my kids are not going to enjoy the new building, future generations of KGIA should. Again, I'm for this project and I'm for the new schools, and I hope that you guys could be for it too. Thank you.
Thank you. The speakers will be joined by Jillian McLaughlin. The next speaker is Deborah Lauder.
Good evening, I'm Deborah Lauder, and I moved to Fort Greene neighborhood just 2 months ago. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the rezoning. When my husband and I decided to move to Brooklyn, we looked at a number of neighborhoods and decided on Fort Greene because of the beautiful open space, the diversity of the neighborhood, the access to public transportation, and the arts. My husband's hobby is gardening, and so we reached out to the coordinator of the community garden, and we were warmly welcomed into this neighborhood. While I do not currently practice law, when I was in San Francisco, I was an attorney and I represented developers. So I'm very familiar with these processes and zonings and environmental impact statements. I have looked over the impact statement, and I believe that is wildly, wildly out of scale with this neighborhood, and that it is inappropriate for this development to go on as proposed. You've already heard the testimony of not only the shadows that are going to appear on our garden and basically devastate it, but on Fort Greene Park. Please, please do not think of this triangle of space as just a garden. The people who have made it possible over these years have planted something much more than flowers and fruit trees and vegetation. They have planted a community. Over the past 2 weeks since the garden has been open, we have been visited by preschool children planting seeds. I have had discussions with numerous people who have lived in this neighborhood for decades who are very, very concerned about what's happening to the neighborhood. I hope you all come by to see the garden. It is truly extraordinary. I firmly believe that this proposed development is not only going to cast shadows on the vegetation, but it's basically going to cast shadows on healthy relationships that define community. Before moving to Brooklyn, I was in Manhattan, and I lived through the construction on 57th Street. The shadows on Central Park are outrageous. Don't let that happen in Brooklyn. Thank you.
Okay, if the speakers could be joined by Henry Karij. Yeah, thank you. Dan?
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Borough President's Office and his staff for hosting this event. My name is Dan Marks. I'm a resident of Community Board 2. I live with my wife and 2-year-old son in downtown Brooklyn. I'm also a board member of a nonprofit cultural organization that operates offices in Dumbo. I'd like to voice my support for the project planned at 80 Flatbush Avenue. One of the biggest concerns my family has is where our child will attend elementary school. There's a severe lack of available options within the community board, and we're concerned that within a few years we'll have to look outside the community board to find suitable quality housing for our son. The 80 Flatbush project will provide much needed seats to the community board, and I'd also say that while adding these seats is important, there's still a number of seats that still need to be added to the community board to meet the demands. In addition to the added school seats, I fully support the developer's plan to add 15,000 square feet of cultural space. The heart of Brooklyn is its culture. We need more places and opportunities for people in Brooklyn to express and share their cultures. The location for this project, I think, is perfect. With the lack of housing across the city, we must find areas where this type of density makes sense. The Flatbush Avenue corridor is home to a number of successful high-density projects, and this would add to the impressive growth of this area. Finally, I want to applaud the development team associated with this project. The team has shown a willingness and eagerness to meet with and listen to the area stakeholders. The city is constantly evolving and growing, and we need projects like this to help meet the growing population demands. Thank you.
Okay, the speakers will be joined by Jennifer Chen. The next speaker is Victoria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Cambranes. I'm a lifelong Brooklynite, a concerned neighbor, and a community activist. I'm here tonight because I strongly oppose this project. We have been put through this kind of development struggle for many years now, and this is not the first situation that we have found ourselves in, and it's not the last opportunity to find affordable housing in this community. This is not a fight between the NIMBYs and the YIMBYs. This is a fight over the soul of Brooklyn. This is a fight that we need to stand up together as a community and realize who the true arbiters of this negotiation are. And I strongly believe that the students of Khalil Gibran are being used as pawns. They are not being given or afforded the correct amount of resources that they should demand, and I believe they should be demanding a lot more. They were put in this situation by the Department of Education 7 years ago. They were placed in a building that was not suitable for their habitation then. It is not suitable for their habitation now, and they're now being baited and being used so that a developer like Alloy is the only one to come in and save them. And that is the wrong way to go about selling our public assets.
Please do not clap. Please let the speaker continue in the interest of time. Thank you. Continue.
Finally, I would just like to say, this community has suffered a lot of displacement already. This affordable housing is absolutely unaffordable when you consider it is not low-income housing, when the percentage of affordable housing does not match what this community needs, and the market rate housing is way too high for what this community needs as well. Thank you.
Next speaker, please call the next speaker, Richard.
If the speakers could be joined by Sue Wolf, next speaker is Jillian.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Hi, my name is Jillian. Thank you for having the hearing tonight. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I support 80 Flatbush. I work for the city on real estate projects, but my wife doesn't, and she also supports this project, and we are both proud residents of this community district. We love this neighborhood and moved here because it has great subway access and lets us have a quick commute to work. It's close to a number of grocery stores, and all of the new development in the area has helped keep rents flat, and in some cases we have friends that were even able to get their rent lowered when it came time to renew because of all the new development. And I want other people to have the opportunity to live in this neighborhood and enjoy all those great amenities too, and the new development will help do that. People that make $30,000 a year should have the opportunity to live here, and 80 Flatbush, the 200 units, they will be affordable to some people that make that low of an income. So I unequivocally support the project. I think it's easier to turn things down than to pass them, and so I hope that you'll consider approving this project. And that's it. Thanks.
If the speakers could be joined by Lauren Thomas, next speaker is Henry.
Hi, everyone. I didn't have time to write a short speech, so I wrote a long one, but I'll try to get this done pretty quickly. My name is Henry Carrier. I live in Carroll Gardens. I ask that Borough President Adams unequivocally reject the 80 Flatbush project. So I'm going to speak tonight about the educational impact. Using the current guidelines for the impact of new residential units on student population and taking into account the school seats being built by the 80 Flatbush development, the project actually reduces capacity by 200 seats. Now, you heard the DOE get up here, the planning person, and say, and this is what's claimed in the EIS, and say that they are adding 164 seats. So how can the numbers be so different? Okay, I can't go through all of them, but I'll give you a few highlights or lowlights, however you want to look at it. The number one thing is on the elementary school side, where the developers want to show overcrowded to bolster their argument. The study area, District 15, Sub-District 3, is not overcrowded. And it's not overcrowded because the developers have conveniently forgotten the 436 seats that are currently under construction at Hoyt and Union PS 32. Just by that, it's no longer overcrowded. So the DOE builds these things, they can't put it in the report, so that's very interesting right there. Based on that alone, the study area is not overcrowded. On the middle school side, where they want to show that there's a lot of excess space, so their students, middle school students won't count, they included a school that have moved away last year. So that overcapacity is in Windsor Terrace now, it's not here. So, you know, the data is over a year old, the new data is available. Don't we deserve up-to-date data? And forget everything I said, 164 seats are 5 classes.
Thank you. Richard, please call the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Speakers will be joined by Angela Quiles. Next speaker is Jennifer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Cohen. I'm a current resident at Ashland Place, right across the street from this building, a former resident of low-density Cobble Hill, and I'm here to voice my support for 80 Flatbush. Yeah, this building will cast shadows on my unit. It will block my views. It will increase some density in the neighborhood, and it will increase ridership on my trains, but truthfully, compared to the F train in Cobble Hill, the trains leaving Atlantic Terminal are pretty much roomy. But I also don't believe that any of that is more important than the needs of New York City school children or the need in New York City for more housing, both market rate and affordable. And these units will be affordable to people who are making under $40,000 a year. As a real estate professional in New York City, I know how difficult it is to finance both affordable housing, to finance school construction, and the ability of 80 Flatbush to do that without additional city subsidy is truly an opportunity that New York City literally cannot afford to pass up. So I strongly encourage you to please vote in favor of this project. Thank you.
Okay, the speakers will be joined by Ben Thipin, and the next speaker is Sue Wolf.
My name is Sue Wolf, former president of the Borum Hill Association. My topic is transitional zoning and neighborhood context. The BHA has never been anti-development. We have consistently supported intelligent development. As an example, in 1998, 1999, the BHA, working with Borough President Howard Golden, established a sensible plan for transitional zoning from State to Livingston. In a few short blocks, a meaningful transition blends low-house and high-rise in a workable plan that was developed with a true community input. On State Street, you see 4 new 4-story townhouses side by side with the historic ones. As you continue north on the south side of Schermerhorn, buildings grow to 140 feet, from 8 to 12 stories. Buildings in this category include State Renaissance Court Building, home to Brooklyn Fair, the Common Ground buildings to the west, and Holiday Inn to the east. No building on the south side of Schermerhorn is taller than 140 feet. On the north side of Schermerhorn, 2 new residences rise to 240 feet. These include Hoyt and Horn, 33 Bond, and 189 Schermerhorn. Moving north, this transition continues on Fulton Street, and finally, the high-rise at City Point. The plan was the result of recommendations made by the Borough President working with the community. We welcome that process again. At the 80 Flatbush development site, transitional zoning is ignored. This is why we asked for construction of row houses on the north side of State Street to act as a buffer between low-rise and high-rise Brooklyn. The tripling of the FAR to 18 is far too aggressive for this site. Thank you.
The speakers could be joined by Ivan Bart. The next speaker is Lauren.
My name is Lauren Thomas, and I moved to Brooklyn last year. I'm standing here in strong support of the proposed 80 Flatbush. I'm from a small town in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. Nothing much ever happens there. I moved to Brooklyn to take advantage of everything the city has to offer. It's not the brownstones or the view of the bank or community gardens that made me move here. It's the economic opportunity that I knew I would encounter. It's the diversity of the people, the opinions, the thoughts, the events that surround me every day in New York City that I didn't get in Ohio. But none of that would be possible without a place to live. That's a privilege that not everybody has. I can't afford to live in downtown Brooklyn. Why then do I stand here asking you to build this building? The answer is simple. There's not enough housing. If this building isn't built, it won't stop your neighborhoods from changing. It just means that more and more people, more and more young people, are going to be moving into your neighbors' townhouses. More and more people will be moving into a smaller and smaller place, creating more and more noise. And they will be driving up rents in Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights and Bushwick and Clinton Hill. There will be no diversity of race. There will be no diversity of income if we continue opposing all new housing, because lots of people like me want to live in Brooklyn. But I can't afford to live in downtown Brooklyn. I can't afford to live in in Cobble Gardens or Clinton Hill, but only rich people. I'm sorry, I'm from Ohio. I just moved here. I don't know all the names yet. I want to learn. But only rich people can afford to live in the few apartments that are here. 80 Flatbush will allow 700 households to live in market rate housing instead of moving into townhouses in Park Slope or Prospect Heights. 80 Flatbush will allow 200 households to live in permanent affordable housing instead of living life like second-class citizens. People say they support more housing, yet all I hear is opposition. If not now, when? If not here, where? We need more housing. Thank you.
Please refrain from clapping. Next speaker.
If the speakers could be joined by Chris Havens, next speaker is Angela.
Hi, my name is Angela Quiles. I'm a homeowner, property owner, and moved into the Fort Greene neighborhood in the late 70s. That was a time when nobody really wanted to be here. I applaud all of us pioneers who took a stand back then and moved into a neighborhood that no one wanted to be in. We've now become quite popular. I have seen and heard promises from many developers who came on through. I call them all carpetbaggers. I've heard from the Tri-Block Association on my block that supposedly was building co-ops for low-income people. That was 20 years ago. No one has been offered a co-op in that development. I have sat through Bruce Ratner's Hoops, Jobs, and Dreams, or whatever the heck. I see that everyone has gotten lovely jobs selling hot dogs in Barclay, so I'm not exactly sure how they're affording rents, market rate rents, off of that type of job. So now we have our school kids being held hostage, and we have the carpetbaggers coming in saying, well, we're going to give you a new school, and because we're going to give you this new school, ignore the 70-story tower behind the window. I say no. We have to say no. We have to oppose this project. It's not good for our neighborhood. I urge the council to please vote no. Thank you.
If the speakers could be joined by Levy Refriel, and the next speaker is Ben.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Carlos Typin, and I'm here because we're in the middle of a housing crisis. The people who would live in 80 Flatbush want to live in this area. So if they didn't live in these towers, guess where they would go? They would go into the neighborhoods so many of you claim to be defending by opposing this project: Borum Hill, Cobble Hill, Fort Greene, etc. If they don't go into new towers like 80 Flatbush, they're going to go into those neighborhoods and drive up rents there, displacing the most vulnerable tenants of your neighborhoods into places like Bed-Stuy, Sunset Park, and Flatbush. There seems to be a belief among many in this room that these new towers are what caused gentrification, which is ironic since many of the white people against this project are gentrifiers themselves. In fact, Borum Hill is a fictional name created by the white yuppies that bought up brownstones in the neighborhood in the 1960s and converted them to single-family homes for multifamily apartments and rooming houses, reducing the supply of housing and displacing lower-income residents. I've heard a lot tonight about preserving neighborhood character, but you know what I'm more concerned about? Preserving the characters in the neighborhood. I close with a simple question. Would you rather have more towers in the sky or more rapid displacement in Bed-Stuy? Thank you very much.
Okay, if the speakers could be joined by Natalie Gomez, the next speaker is Ivan Bart.
Hi, thank you for having us today. This development really is sadly hiding behind altruistic reasons, but really deeply rooted in profit and propaganda. The whole conversation in regards to improving the school is really being used to sell us skyscrapers. If we really were concerned about the school, I don't understand why the developer is insisting on a cultural center that happens to be across Bam Fisher, the Harvey Theater, Mark Morris Dance, the Theater for the New Audience, and Brick. I don't know what more that will accomplish, and why not give that to the children if this is exactly what it is, which it's not. I'm a Brooklyn boy. I grew up here. My grandfather came weekly from Bensonhurst to do his banking at the Williams Savings Bank. He was so proud of that building and the clock, he called it our Big Ben. I used to go with him often to see the bank and to marvel at the clock. The continued development and overdevelopment in this area is blocking a historic landmark. The building is landmark, meaning there could be nothing done to the building, so I don't understand why we're allowing it to be hidden. It's extremely upsetting, and for many of us here who grew up in this area, to see the area being destroyed. Lastly, I have brought up over this last year many times to the developer that there is an existing 19th century smokestack right behind the school. It's never been discussed. It's not on their plans. Even if as they discuss environmental, sustainable areas that they plan to give to us. They've never talked about this. This is going to go the way of a wrecking ball, and it will join a crane to build a skyscraper that will choke our skies. This is wrong. Please oppose this without recommendations.
The next speaker be joined by Rebecca Siegel, and coming up to speak is Chris Havens.
Please let me remind you, we ask you not to clap or make any comments so we can expedite the speaking. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Havens. I live in Hoyt Street with my family. I'm a commercial real estate broker who has worked in Brooklyn 20 years matching tenants and landlords. The Atlantic Terminal area badly needs office space now and in the future, just as Brooklyn does. It is arguably the best location in the borough for such space. You all know why. New and renovated office space is now very difficult, if not impossible, to create due to lack of financing. This project can make it happen. This project will deliver much needed space and the jobs for Brooklyn residents that come with that space. Thank you.
The speakers can be joined by Jonathan Calazani, and the next speaker is Levy.
How you doing? My name is Levy Raphael. I want to just start by saying that we got a new rat growing in Brooklyn. Listen, we know what happens when we got new development. They displace all the rats in the ground. We heard a lot of things here, and I'm against this project for one reason. Our lawyers are going to get big billion tax abatements, and the respect of that alone, we know what's going on. I want to talk about a little Beers garden, and I want to talk about what they blocking the shade that they're going to give us. We are going to go from 10 hours of sunlight to less than 4 hours of sunlight. Guess what? Our peppers and tomatoes are not having it. I want to tell y'all thank you very much.
If the speakers can be joined by Cynthia Tyndale, and the next speaker is Natalie.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm a college student. I'm from Queens. I just want to say really quick, it's been great listening to everyone speak. I think I learned a lot from both sides. Personally, my heart is with the students of the high school and also with the gardeners, because these are two really important community groups. I would like to say that I read the CEQR, so the Environmental Impact Report, and one quick quote that I'd like to share is, quote, "The proposed actions would not result in significant adverse impacts related to socioeconomic conditions," unquote. The development would not accelerate current trends of changing socioeconomic conditions, and vast majority of study area residents are not vulnerable to displacement as defined under CEQR, because they live in housing not vulnerable to rent pressures, or their incomes can can support substantial rent increases. I think it's important to make affordable housing. The demand for housing in that area is the greatest at 60% AMI, and Alloy is providing 200 units at 60% AMI. I would just like to say that I think that a responsible thing that Alloy could do is work with the community garden, because it's really important to create those relationships in your neighborhood, and work with the community garden to find possible vegetations that can work with less sunlight. I would think of, for example, the High Line. The High Line is in an area where there's a lot of development, and they have to face constant pressures of changing what types of vegetation is able to grow with the shadow impacts that they now have. So I would just ask Alloy to maybe extend a hand in that way. Thank you.
If the speakers can be followed by Joseph E. Botras, and the next speaker is Rebecca. Rebecca Siegel.
Good evening.
My name is Joseph Botros.
No, wasn't calling you to the mic yet, just to join the speaker. So we don't have Rebecca Siegel here then. Okay, so the next speaker, Jonathan.
Hi, my name is Jonathan. I'm a 5-year resident of Brooklyn. I'm gay, Latino, and originally from Oklahoma. I was really lucky that I got to go to college. I'm delighted that I get to live here. But I know so many Oklahomans who have really wanted to leave Oklahoma, but really can't because most cities are really priced out of anything they could ever afford. In addition, I volunteer with many high school students. Many of them are low-income high school students, many mostly of color, who live in families that are at huge risk of displacement. I get that there's a lot of trade-offs here. I'm sympathetic to that. I love architecture. I've volunteered with several architecture groups in our community, and I get that we're going to lose some views. But that said, building 900 units of housing is a win for us, and it's a huge win for many low-income families who can't be here tonight, who are in other communities within Brooklyn who are going to be displaced if we don't build housing here. So I would encourage people to think, if we're not going to build 900 houses here, where are those people going to go? Wealthy families are not just going to vanish from Brooklyn, but many of the families of children I work with every weekend are going to be displaced from our city. I'd strongly urge the Brooklyn president to vote yes and support housing. Thank you.
If the speakers could be joined by Patty Hagan, the next speaker is Cynthia. I have Cynthia Tyndale. Okay, then I'm not sure. See more people there than slips. I have Joseph. Joseph.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Botros, and I am the chairman of the board of the Arab American Family Support Center. Also, I am a member of the Borough President Eric Adam Brooklyn Ambassadors Program. I am here to support the 80 Flatbush project, which includes state-of-the-art high school facility for Khalil Gibran International Academy and a new elementary school. The new facility will double the size of the school. It will increase capacity from 300 to 350 students. It will have a new gym, a new library, and culture center. It will include state-of-the-art science lab and arts facility, a large capacity of outdoor space. Our children are the future of America, and they deserve a new school, which Flatbush project will provide. So please support the 2 new schools. Thank you very much.
Okay, next speaker is Patty Hagan. I'm going to call a few more speakers. After that would be Ben Murray, Peter Bray, and Jack Davies. Guess she didn't come up. Yeah. All right, so I don't see Patty here now, so could have Ben Murray, please.
Good evening. My name is Ben Murray. I live in downtown Brooklyn, just a few blocks away on Court Street. My partner and I moved here 5 years ago because we were attracted to the growing downtown Brooklyn neighborhood, the tree-lined communities that surround it, the ease of transportation to where I work, and access to parks and cultural institutions that make it a model for smart urban growth. I have watched new buildings rise around us, businesses move and start here, and friends and family relocate here. We have taken an active role in our community, here I am, and have been grateful to make our home here. I understand the opposition's arguments and empathize with their concern over the height and density this development will bring. This development will indeed bring change to the neighborhoods around it. But I disagree that these changes are negative on the whole. We need more housing in New York, we need smarter use of land near transportation centers, and we need help for public benefits like schools and cultural centers. This is one of the few areas in Brooklyn that is marked for high-density growth and has been for almost 100 years. And here we have a proposal that will bring critical, affordable, and market-rate housing to a transit hub, not some faraway location. The affordable housing will be most critical for working families who are most affected by the current crisis and will ensure that more families from different backgrounds will have access to the vibrant community that's growing around us and the reason why I moved here. I arrived here from San Francisco, where a steadfast resistance to growth led to a training of the diversity and dynamism for which the city is known and contributes today to a massive affordable housing crisis. It's for the benefit of the entire Brooklyn community and the continued growth of this neighborhood that I stand in support of the 80 Flatbush proposal. Thank you very much.
I'm going to call a few names to get more up here. Thomas Devaney, followed by Dan Miller, followed by Irene Van Slyke, with the next speaker being Peter Bray.
My name's Peter Bray. I'm the Executive Director of the Brooklyn Heights Association, the other BHA. The BHA opposes the rezoning application for the 80 Flatbush Avenue project. Would like to place our opposition in a historical context. I specifically refer to the planning failure associated with the 2004 rezoning of downtown Brooklyn, and would argue that the rezoning application before us follows the same path. The earlier zoning plan sought to create a third central business district. At the time, city planning projected the development of 4.6 million square feet of commercial office space, nearly 1 million square feet of retail, and 1,000 units of housing over the subsequent 10 years. Those projections could not have been further off the mark. Instead of a new commercial center, nearly 15,000 units of housing have been built instead. The Brooklyn Borough Presidents' review of this rezoning a decade later noted that, quote, unfortunately, much of the premise for the rezoning has not been met, namely making downtown Brooklyn a 21st century business and commercial district, and downtown Brooklyn is bearing a burden of unanticipated new residential development without a comparable level of infrastructure to sustainably support a growing 24-hour community. One of the most egregious aspects of that failure is a deficit of 3,000 school seats in the downtown. But the BHA would submit that the proposed rezoning for 80 Flatbush does not remedy this need, nor the area's broader infrastructure needs. Instead, it would greatly exacerbate them. I refer to the 300% increase in the FAR, and that the 900 new units of housing does not really increase the school capacity, or it will increase it modestly, and at worst, in a negligible manner. Thank you.
If the speakers could be joined by Stephen Yearwood, the next speaker is Jack Davies.
My name is Jack Davies. I'm the Policy and Campaigns Manager for Transportation Alternatives. I'm here to voice support solely for the proposal to eliminate parking minimums at 80 Flatbush. We need growth that encourages public transportation use, walking and bicycling instead of driving. The requested waiver is the responsible approach to development in Brooklyn. Research has shown that when the supply of parking is increased, the demand to drive also increases, even when that driving isn't critical. This in turn leads to increased traffic congestion, slower bus speeds, increased air pollution, and compromised pedestrian and bicycle safety across the city. Eliminating parking minimums at 80 Flatbush would set an important precedent here and in other transit-rich outer borough developments, prioritizing people over motor vehicles. Please join Transportation Alternatives and many other community members in supporting this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, if the speakers would be joined by David Kulwich, and the next speaker is Thomas Devaney.
Good evening. Thomas Devaney, Senior Director of Land Use and Planning for the Municipal Arts Society of New York. The Municipal Arts Society of New York finds the 1.3 million square foot development exceedingly dense and tall, and fundamentally contrary to the long-range plan envisioned for the site in the 2004 downtown Brooklyn rezoning. We urge the applicants to work with the community and come up with a scaled-down proposal that better represents a collective vision. The magnitude of the proposal cannot be overstated. With an FAR of 18, it would represent the highest density development outside of Manhattan since 1961 that does not use a transfer of development rights to achieve its peak density. While we commend the reuse of the historic buildings and proposed new school facility, there is no getting around the harmful effects the development will have on area community facilities, open space, and traffic conditions. We find this to be manifestly bad planning and grossly inconsistent with the long-term vision that identified the property as a transitional zone from downtown Brooklyn to the lower density Borum Hill neighborhood and a projected fraction of the proposed development. About the project area, the 2004 FEIS stated the proposed height limits along these blocks will be reduced in order to create a transition to the nearby low-scale residential neighborhood. At the time, the city grossly underestimated the amount of new housing that would be built in the area through the downtown Brooklyn rezoning. 979 new units were anticipated by 2003. However, by 2014, an astounding 11,000 dwelling units had either been built or were planned to be built. Since that time, the city has failed to address the problem of overburdened public schools and daycare facilities in this district. Even with the net 388 school seats expected under the plan, elementary school enrollment in this district will be 158% over capacity by 2025. We urge the applicants in the city to work with the community and come up with a reasonable proposal that better represents a collective vision for the future of Borum Hill and downtown Brooklyn.
Okay, if the speakers could be joined by Raphael Wakefeld, the next speaker is Dan Miller.
Hi, my name is Dan Miller, and I would like to urge you to support this project in its entirety. Why? Because, like many New Yorkers, I wish the rent was lower. The problem with New York is that we are not building enough housing. There are going to be 700 units in this building with an additional 200 units of affordable housing. And now, almost everyone in this room has mentioned that they support affordable housing. So let's set that aside. Let's focus on those 700 market rate units. Those are enough to hold approximately 1,000 people. If we don't build this building, what happens to those 1,000 people? They don't vanish into thin air. Some of them will move to the suburbs, can drive 50 miles a day, emit a bunch more carbon emissions, and lead to climate change and other environmental problems. Others of them will decide, now I would rather stay in New York, and so they'll move further out to neighborhoods like Crown Heights, to neighborhoods like Bed-Stuy. They'll contribute to even more gentrification in parts of the city that are already burdened by displacement and strained by traffic and congestion. What we need is to build close-in housing with a lot of transit access in an environmentally friendly way. That's what this project is, and I'm urging you to support the project. Thank you.
The speakers could be joined by Lucy Coteen. The next speaker is Irene.
My name is Irene Van Slyke, and I join many others in their opposition to the proposal for a zoning text and map amendment to change the zoning from C6-2 to C6-9. I urge the Borough President and the City Council to vote no on the increase in height allowed under C6-9. The developer is hawking his plans for its benefits, a new elementary school and a new school building for the Khalil Gibran School, restoration of a historic building and affordable housing. How can you be against that? What he is not telling anyone is that he desperately needs to add the city-owned buildings where the Khalil Gibran School is located to his application, because without them, he could not build higher. The New York City Planning Office uses something called FAR, a floor area ratio, and it controls the size of a building. If you only have a small property, your development is restricted to a lower height in bulk. City planning says what you can do to build higher. In limited circumstances, usually to promote the preservation of a historic building, a transfer of development rights may be permitted where the transfer could not be accomplished through a zoning lot merger. In other words, a developer needs the buildings where the Khalil Gibran School is located so that then he can merge his development rights with that building. I don't have time, but we really need to know what the We do not know what, if anything, the developer is paying for those air rights that he now has gotten, and it will help his bottom line. And if the benefits developer is offering justifying giving away public property to a private developer. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
If the speakers could be joined by Brian Brown, the next speaker is Stephen.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Yearwood, and I'm testifying on behalf of 32BJ SEIU to express our union's strong support for the development of 80 Flatbush in downtown Brooklyn. The project developer, Alloy Development, is a responsible actor that has committed to creating good-paying jobs at the site. In addition, we strongly support the project's commitment to the development of much-needed affordable housing in this increasingly expensive neighborhood. The 80 Flatbush project stands as a model of responsible development in our city by creating good jobs that pay a fair wage and provide good benefits. Allied Development will help its workers to continue to live in, raise their kids in, and retire in New York City. It is in our common interest to make sure that all city projects are equitable and benefit the entire community. Thank you.
The speakers can be joined by Doug Benke, I believe it is, and the next speaker is David.
Dear Borough President Adams, in a recent television interview, you discussed beating diabetes by changes in your diet, among them eating healthy and choosing fresh vegetables. You further elaborated that your office has directed monies to improve the quality and availability of local produce in Brooklyn, including produce grown in community gardens and other sites. I'm requesting your support of our community garden in downtown Brooklyn by opposing the rezoning of 80 Flatbush. Our 40-year-old New York City Parks community garden is at the corner of Flatbush and Lafayette Avenues, directly north of the proposed development. In addition to the beautiful flowers that bring joy to the neighborhood, we also have 20 raised beds in which we grow vegetables and herbs for consumption, plus a grape arbor, as well as many types of fruit trees. When the weather grows cold, the garden is a little oasis of sunshine that community members all over Brooklyn and the city can enjoy. Our garden and the health of this community depend on the sunlight that will be blocked by the 80 Flatbush development built as proposed. We encourage you as Borough President to oppose the rezoning for the following reasons. According to the environmental impact statement provided by Alloy, 80 Flatbush will cause our garden to go from more than 12 hours of sunlight a day to less than 4 hours. Vegetables and fruit-bearing trees need at least 10 hours of sunlight a day to produce. Many, if not all, of the fruit trees in our garden will die if this is rezoned at 18 FAR. The 80 Flatbush site was already upzoned in 2004 from 3.6 FAR to 6.0 FAR as part of the Downtown Brooklyn Plan in 2004, with appropriate sensitivity to surrounding brownstone blocks. The proposed tower of 986 feet is out of context and nearly triple the height of what could be built as of right. Furthermore, there's tremendous wind tunnels in this area and are going to be getting worse with this development if it goes forward as proposed. Thank you.
If the speakers could be joined by Charmaine Mirazan, and the next speaker is Raphael.
Hi, my name is Raphael Wakefield. I support this project, but I think that the second speaker, who was opposed to 80 Flatbush, made a great point on behalf of the school children, and I'm surprised no one else brought it up, especially in the context of talking about neighborhood context and character. And that point is that Flatbush is a very dangerous street for children or adults. I think every street should be safe. There are virtually no car accidents in New York City. The city's Vision Zero policy recognizes that, because every child killed or injured by a vehicle is preventable by a policy directed by city and state government. It's a separate issue to which this project is just one part of a sensible response, by building lots of homes and business space and school expansion with no parking spots atop a subway nexus near existing job centers. I also want to address the statement read on behalf of the state senator, which expressed opposition on the basis that this project would receive public funding in the form of a tax abatement, while the transit system supposedly remains underfunded and overwhelmed. This is a sleight of hand. It's a dereliction of responsibility to oversee a competent transit agency, which is run by and funded by the state, by attempting to blame the city for working within a broken property tax code and arbitrary building restrictions imposed by the state. If the senator wants to introduce a bill to give New York City the same kind of property tax structural control this rest of the state enjoys, and another bill giving the MTA the oversight it so badly needs, that will be doing far more to solve this problem than opposing one specific building. 80 Flatbush is the kind of practical instruction that New York City needs. An earlier speaker opposed to the project noted that other Brooklyn luxury rental developers were having trouble filling their buildings and were being forced to lower rents. That is exactly the basis on which I support this project. New York City, and particularly transit-rich parts of Brooklyn, should welcome new, energy-efficient construction without parking to drive rents back down to more affordable levels. I do not love high-rises for their own sake, and I do not hate the sun. But living near high-rises recently built, I'm here to say it's not the end of the world either. I salute those people who moved to Fort Greene in the bad old days. Thank you.
The speakers could be joined by Jonathan Glazer. The next speaker is, Lucy.
Hi, good evening. Greetings, everybody. My name is Lucy Coteen. I live in Fort Greene for many, many years. I remember our city council member, Letitia James, on a stage leading a chant of, "Don't block the clock," rallying against the Atlantic Yards project. She was right, of course. What we got is a taxpayer boondoggle where New York State taxpayers have subsidized with $2 billion the Chinese government and a Russian oligarch. Along with that, a highway of broken promises, overpriced affordable, quote, affordable housing that had to be let go to market rate, since that is what it really was to begin with. We got an arena funded with what has been recently classified as nearly junk bonds, and we got politicians who enriched themselves with their campaign and their campaign funds with Ratner dollars along the way. Now we are staring down another supersized development full of promises that may or may not be fulfilled. Hang on a second. It is complete with taxpayer subsidies that leave those who actually pay their taxes with increases in overburdened infrastructure, including a subway terminal that is already at and beyond capacity. Once again, elected officials have enriched their campaign coffers with contributions from this and other developers, and lobbyists are richer by $500,000 from Alloy developer. What, $500,000, you say? That is quite an investment for a developer who is giving to the community so many benefits at zero capital cost. What we have not heard one word about is what benefit this altruistic developer who only wants to work with the community gets out of it while erasing the zoning commitment made a few years ago to protect the community from this very project. So once again, we come together to say our community is overwhelmed with new high-rises, many of them half empty, and to chant, "Don't block the clock." Thank you.
The speakers can be joined by Matthew Matty, and the next speaker is Bryant Brown.
Good evening, Brooklyn. Hope all are well. Thank you for coming out this evening. I'm here testifying on behalf of 32BJ, SEIU. I want to piggyback on the support for this project and for bringing both good jobs and affordable housing to Brooklyn. 32BJ SEIU is the largest property service workers union in the country with more than 160,000 members in 11 states and the District of Columbia. In New York City, our union's roots go back about 100 years. Over the decades, we have unified office cleaners, apartment building workers, curio officers, window cleaners, theater and stadium upkeep, and public school workers from all across the city and Long Island District with 80,000 members as well. We also represent nearly 600 members who live in the community district too. Around 2,032 BJ members that work in the community district too. 400 of them work in residential buildings like 80 Flatbush is proposing to develop. Responsible development should include good jobs and community. Alloy has made a commitment to providing that. For these reasons, we hope that Borough President, the Honorable Mr. Eric Adams, will support this project. Thank you very much for your valuable time. Thank you.
Speaker will be followed, if you could join, by Benjamin Picard, and the next speaker is Doug.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Doug Bube. I've lived in Borum Hill and Fort Greene since 1984. I moved here because it was quiet and intimate, like a small village amicably residing within a large city. Over the past few years, the section of Brooklyn has become overbuilt. It's out of proportion with the existing zoning regulations of 4-story brownstones. The unprecedented proposed height of rezoning 80 Flatbush Avenue is too tall. Will cast shadows, school children will be placed in harm's way near one of the busiest thoroughfares in Brooklyn, and also increase the population that will create unnecessary congestion for our subways. In Alloy's duplicitous presentations, they never discuss the excessive ambient low and high frequency noises that will emanate from their HVAC systems forever. After the buildings have been erected, this is above and beyond years of construction noise and trucks rumbling to and from the work site. All towering buildings emit an inordinate amount of noise above and below ground, with reverberations that can be heard especially at night. For example, heading east on Fulton Street, beginning at Flatbush Avenue, walking by any of the newly built apartment complexes are disproportionately loud. Upzoning for high-volume noise is relegated to manufacturing neighborhoods, not residential communities such as Fort Greene and Borum Hill. This is not an industrial park for deafening sounds. It's not downtown Brooklyn. It's a quiet residential area with small business vendors. 80 Flatbush Avenue with their enormous HVAC systems, with their oversized electric generators, its maze of ductwork with its massive exhaust fans, with their 24/7 motors constantly pulsating, pushing and sucking air will never cease. It will destroy the quiet that exists on Skimmerhorn and the surrounding area. It's not too late to recognize how egregious this proposal is by Alloy for Borum Hill. Let's keep Brooklyn great. Vote no to Alloy's monstrosity at 80 Flatbush Avenue. Thank you.
The speakers can be joined by William Thomas. The next speaker is Charmaine.
Good evening. My name is Charmaine Marizan, and I am the Community Development Coordinator with Fifth Avenue Committee, and I'm here to read a couple of testimonials we've had with affordable housing tenants. First testimonial, written by one of our applicants. I'm a native New Yorker raised in Queens, now living in Brooklyn for 6 years, and have a strong and passionate sense of pride in my city. I was educated through New York City public school system, privileged to attend a prestigious university based in New York, and have a career in the tech industry. This is all to say that I cannot overstate how greatly I value the opportunity to plant my roots in the future of the city as it grows and improves. As an affordable housing tenant, I've had an overall positive experience, but not without its challenges. I have been applying for affordable housing units for over 2 years. Thanks to the acceptance of these affordable housing buildings, I am now able to remain living in the Fort Greene neighborhood of Brooklyn. I have grown to love and a price I can afford after a previous landlord attempted to evict me and my family from our home with as little as 15 days' notice. As it turns out, the project encourages affordable housing in high-priced, gentrified areas of Brooklyn are some of the best opportunities for New York natives like myself to remain in the neighborhoods, while the market rate prices force many longtime residents out. I am grateful to the mixed-use income building still leasing to new tenants. I can only hope that the neighborhoods that provide affordable housing, developers that afford affordable housing, offer more opportunities in the city that I call my home. Fifth Avenue Committee, thanks.
The speakers could be joined by Jackson Lear, with the next speaker being Jonathan.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Glazer. I'm a resident of 400 block of State Street. Until recently, there was a plaque located directly across from 80 Flatbush with this quote from Will Rogers: I'd rather be the man who bought the Brooklyn Bridge than the man who sold it. Will Rogers, with all due respect to Will Rogers, who was from Oklahoma, not Brooklyn, a better choice would have been to say no to the original offer. The Educational Construction Fund and Alloy Development believe that the benefits of this proposed rezoning will far outweigh any costs or hardships that would be imposed on local residents, adjacent Brooklyn neighborhoods, and city taxpayers. They failed to make a compelling case for this belief at public meetings during the pre-certification process phase of the ULURP. Little or no effort was made to provide the following: the exact amount of city funding and subsidies that would be given to the developer for the building of the 2 schools and affordable housing, a clear explanation of how the real estate that would be created through the rezoning, which totals almost 1 million square feet and is estimated to be worth about $260 million, would be transferred to Alloy and ECF. Exploration of alternative sites for the Khalil Gibran High School during the construction phase as originally called for in the ECF RFEI. The failure to do that will greatly lengthen the construction time and in the imposition on the neighborhood. A dynamic traffic study which rigorously examines the likely effects of obstructing the intersection of 3rd Avenue, Skimmerhorn, and Flatbush, both on local streets and multiple traffic arteries. In his 2016 report, Borough President Adams recognizes the many unintended consequences of the 2004 rezoning of downtown Brooklyn. In retrospect, it would have been better if a more serious effort had been made to anticipate them. Approval of this proposal would greatly exacerbate the infrastructure problems described in the Borough President's report. The Brooklyn Bridge is not for sale. Brooklyn is not for sale. Please vote no to the zoning changes requested to the ULURP. Thank you.
The speakers can be joined by Hannah Elwell, and the next speaker is Matthew. So we don't have Matthew here, so the next speaker is Benjamin Picard.
Hi, thanks. I'm a resident of Fort Greene. I would urge the Borough President to vote no on 80 Flatbush, specifically because I've thought about 2 arguments that I've heard a little bit here. One is that it's all about supply, that building more affordable housing, or more housing period, is a solution. I think that you should look at the actual evidence, which MIT has performed studies that have shown every time there's an upzoning, there's a net loss of affordable housing. That's just an incontrovertible fact. I would argue, and maybe it's because it's been a little while since I've had a bathroom break, that it's like bringing bulk Perrier to Flint, Michigan to try to solve their water crisis. They're just 2 fundamentally different products, right? The second argument that I think is sort of specious, but superficially compelling, but ultimately fails, is that we have one product in the city that can deliver this myriad of goods, right? This residential skyrises are going to deliver housing for low-income people. They're going to deliver schools. They're going to deliver commercial office space. They're going to deliver cultural housing. It reminds me of this movie, AJyres, where they decide that the only way they can accomplish anything is by producing more sports drink and consuming more sports drink, right? It's just a specious argument. What in reality we're doing is funding badly needed public services with the most expensive capital, which is developer capital. And there's got to be a better solution. If we want to build houses, let's find a way to build affordable housing. If we want to build schools, let's find a way to do that, and let's insist that our electeds do that. The one other thing I would say to that point is, and I hope Borough President knows this, is the 2 most competitive city council races, or 2 of the most primaries. I mean, city council members always been primaries, were Laurie Good in Fort Greene and Margaret Chin in LES. Those were both about this kind of reckless development that's just is a developer holding out its hand, trying to get more than is beneficial for the community. I would urge Borough President Adams to vote no on the upzoning. Thanks.
If the speakers could be joined by Michael Dubik, the next speaker is William.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Thomas. I'm testifying as a representative of Open New York, a pro-tenant, pro-housing organization, and I'm here to support 80 Flatbush along those lines. By helping to alleviate New York's housing shortage, the project will help to stave off higher rents and prevent displacement of poor New Yorkers. We all know that New York has a terrible housing shortage. Median rents have increased more than double median wages since 2010. Homelessness is at the highest level since the 1930s. I could go on. What everyone may not know is that the impact new buildings have on the rest of the rental market. They give greedy landlords competition and make older buildings cheaper in comparison. Different facts, but I trust many of you are aware that a number of new buildings have just hit the market. They may not be full yet, but they've already caused the median Brooklyn rent to fall, not just the top of the market. I asked the borough president to help continue the cycle by endorsing 80 Flatbush. I would also like to remind the opponents of this project and the borough president that its rejections would have consequences for the city as a whole. 200 families will not get an affordable home. The rich people who would otherwise live in these rental units will instead outbid people in currently affordable neighborhoods like Crown Heights, Bed-Stuy, and Bushwick. This has been an ongoing process. Almost 1 million people have left the New York City metro area since 2010. Although the city's population has grown as a whole, the people leaving New York make substantially less money than the people moving in. In other words, they're being replaced. We need to make room for everyone in the city by building all kinds of housing at all kinds of price points. The 900 homes in this project are an excellent place to start. Again, New York doesn't have enough housing for the people who want to live here. I asked the borough president to privilege solutions to that citywide problem over shadows and views in well-off Boerum Hill. Thank you.
Please, no clapping. Call the next speaker, please.
The speakers can be joined by Angela Pinsky. The next speaker is Jackson.
Thank you. Thanks to the speaker before last, I'm now thirsty and have to go to the bathroom. But glad to have a minute and 50 seconds here. So my family has lived in Brooklyn for 7 years now, recently decided to stay for the long term. We live a few miles away, and I'm speaking as a citizen of the broader Brooklyn community with some distance and objectivity. I'm a principled business person. I support responsible development, affordable housing, and education. And I have 2 observations to share and 1 request. First, Alloy defines itself by the following. Integral to our approach is the celebration and support of the communities in which we work through direct engagement and collaboration. If those words mean anything, the unanimous opposition of the community board should automatically mean back to the drawing board. Second, with some distance, this wildly out-of-scale proposal and 3x zoning request appears to be a classic high-ball, low-ball tactic, and we shouldn't fall for it. When my little daughter asks for 3 cookies, hoping for 2 when she should get 1, she still gets 1. I love her, but she still gets 1. Compromise on this proposed project, resulting in a smaller but still too tall tower, would violate recent zoning history already expanded in 2004. Finally, my request. Borough President Adams, please oppose the proposal and its rezoning. Please honor the recent rezoning and don't renege on the deal like our president would.
Okay, if the speakers could be joined by Brendan Gibbons, and the next speaker is Hannah.
Good evening. I'm Hannah Elwell, representing the Brooklyn Children's Museum and voicing our support for this project. I've worked closely with Alloy for several years and can attest to their character and values. Alloy takes their civic responsibility seriously. They are visionary and effective collaborators, and equally important, reliable and supportive partners. 3 years ago, they donated an 1,800 square foot storefront space to the museum within their 1 John Street project in Brooklyn Bridge Park. Alloy generously arranged the lease so that Brooklyn Children's Museum pays only maintenance and the cost of utilities. In addition to the donation of space, Alloy's team of architects contributed their time to design the interiors of the space, coordinate the construction, cover 100% of the fit-out costs, and contribute to our operating expenses at the new location. This support was 100% elective on their part, not a mandate from the city or the park. This space, called Spark by the Brooklyn Children's Museum, has now been open for over a year, and we've welcomed over 10,000 children and caregivers. From our experience, Alloy will be effective stewards of this, and we are excited to see that their proposed project will include a new cultural facility and new schools. As you may know, Brooklyn Children's Museum is concerned with the well-being and cultural education of children. The proposed new school facilities and cultural institution that are part of this proposal seem like great additions to downtown Brooklyn, and we support their inclusion on this project. Considering the inclusive public programming, we are excited by the standard this project might set for new developments in Brooklyn. Based on our experience, I trust ALA can make this vision a reality, and I encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
So the next speaker is Michael Dubik, and the speaker should be joined by Brad Samuels.
Good evening. I'm Michael Dubik, a 37-year resident of Borum Hill, and I will address 3 issues briefly regarding this project, which I strongly oppose. First, the project completely disregards the context of the Borum Hill neighborhood, which is in fact where the project is located, not downtown Brooklyn. Most of Borum Hill contains 3- and 4-story residences where R6B zoning prevails. The primary commercial corridors, Atlantic Avenue and Smith Street, are zoned R7A and R6A respectively, which impose a height limit of 70 to 85 feet. Constructing a 900-foot tall residential tower along a second, slightly shorter tower at the site ignores any idea of transitional zoning. Thus, it is grossly out of scale with the neighborhood. Second, the population density which this project would produce is overwhelming. Building 900 apartment units, multiple stories of commercial office space, ground-level retail establishments, 2 schools, and a so-called cultural center on one trapezoid-shaped block will severely affect traffic, pedestrian safety, including elementary school-aged children, mass transit, sanitation, and sewage systems. There is a reason the site is currently zoned for a floor-area ratio of 6.0, inasmuch as it reflects the environmental impact that the site can withstand. The zoning variance requested by this project would triple that FAR, and it flies in the face of sensible urban planning.
Thank you.
The speakers can be joined by Jesse Webster, with the next speaker being Angela. Don't have Angela, then the following speaker would be... Oh, we got to... Okay, we're being joined by Councilmember...
Public Advocate.
Public Advocate Tish James.
Okay, please, we all love Tish, but please no clapping. We have to follow the rules for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Ingrid.
Thank you, Public Advocate.
Thank you, Madam
James.
Ingrid Martin. So good evening, everyone. I just wanted to come by again to express my opposition to 80 Flatbush Avenue. I believe the shadows obviously will override the neighborhood, will affect not only downtown Brooklyn, but the shadows ostensibly will go all the way to Clinton Hill. I'm concerned, obviously, that we are setting a very bad precedent. I do not oppose development. What I do support is responsible development, and I've always done that, and I haven't changed my position since I've left the city council. I'm going to be consistent. It's not a question of affordable housing versus everything else. It's not a quid pro, not what's the term? I'm late. A Hobson's choice. That's the term that I want. It's not a Hobson's choice. We can have affordable housing. We can have responsible development. The gardens can breathe. We can see the light. We can see sunlight. The Manhattanization of Brooklyn, unfortunately, has impacted our quality of life in the city of New York. And the soul, as someone mentioned who took my quote, the soul of Brooklyn obviously is up for grabs. And so we should not block the clock. We should respect the lady, the Williamsburg Bank Building, which is an icon. And again, as someone who was born and raised in Brooklyn, when I would get lost in Prospect Park, I would always look to the Williamsburg Bank Building for direction and purpose and a sense of who I am and what I believe in. So with that, I believe the developer should go back to the table, get it right, respect, and the project should reflect the values of the residents of the borough of Brooklyn. He can get it right. We're not opposed to development, but I urge him to reject this project, and I would urge the city council to do the same thing and to have some spine and stand up to these developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Public Advocate James. Richard, please call the next speaker and who is on deck.
Okay, speaker again, do we have Angela Pinsky? If not, Brendan Gibbons, and if we could be joined by Nancy Albital.
Hi, Mr. Borough President, Ms. Lewis Martin. I think I'll elaborate nicely on what the public advocate had to say. I think I'm amazed, and I'll just leave it at amazed at who I think are probably progressives and liberals in this room who have given corporate developers every single thing that they have asked for. On affordable housing, the AMI is currently 60%. That's $43,000 per year for an individual in income. When I moved to Manhattan a couple years ago, I made $38,000. Don't tell anyone that. I was in graduate school. I don't believe I'm the person that should be applying for affordable housing. And on top of that, the Fifth Avenue example that they gave was a woman who applied for affordable housing who went to a prestigious New York university and now has a job in the tech industry. I think clearly the AMI should be lower. The affordable housing advocates who are here tonight should be up here stamping their feet for a 40% AMI. Why is that not possible? Now, and I want to say one thing about the education aspect also. The community members here tonight are clearly not against fixing the education system, but this is a debate that was supposed to happen a decade ago with the DOE. The DOE brought in ECF, ECF made a deal with Alloy, and now Alloy has put profits above students, above everyone but themselves. If the developers had played by the rules, the school would probably already be under construction. Now, instead of putting students first, instead of putting affordable housing first, instead of putting city planning first, ignoring the community, the developers put themselves first. It's time we start saying no to corporations in DC, in New York, and across the entire city. We have to say no. Thank you.
The next speaker is Brad Samuels, and if we could be joined by Ben Richardson.
Hi, I'm Brad Samuels. I'm here to support 80 Flatbush. I'm a partner at C2. We're a design, research, and fabrication practice that's based in the Brooklyn Navy Yards, and we're about 35 people, all of whom live in Brooklyn. We built our business in Brooklyn, and really the decision to move to the Navy Yard was based on the kind of vibrancy of the ecosystem and the potential for innovation in this borough. And we see 80 Flatbush as a kind of extension of that innovation in that kind of ecosystem, let's say. So the mixed-use development, the kind of commercial, cultural, and residential components, we think is what this ecosystem is all about. And so not all neighborhoods can support this kind of density and this kind of verticality, but I think downtown Brooklyn can. And I think we've already seen palpable transformations around the Navy Yards where we're working not just within the Navy Yard, but kind of all of the ecosystem that's growing up around it. I think it attracts talent, it creates jobs, and I think embracing sensible approaches to density is essential to retain people to both live and work in Brooklyn like us. We also know Alloy very well because we were in the same building at 20J before we moved to Building 77 in the Navy Yards. And these guys definitely stand to make a lot of money from this project, but I think, and that's certainly a motivation, but I would say it's not their primary motivation. I see them also as deeply committed to civic and cultural impact, and I think that's partially what this project is about. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Jesse Webster, and if I could ask a couple speakers to come up, Malik Coleman and Chris, looks like Mizjin, not quite sure.
Messia, I think it's either M-E, it might be Mejia, M-E-J-I-A, Mejia. Okay.
Okay, so it's not Jesse, it's no Jesse here, then Nancy. Okay.
Hi, my name is Nancy Albilal. I'm the president and CEO of the Arab American Family Support Center. Our organization is rooted in the heart of Brooklyn. For the last 25 years, we've been providing services to multiple communities in Brooklyn. I'm here to express my support for 80 Flatbush project, which includes a brand new state-of-the-art high school facility for Khalil Gibran International Academy. This is an opportunity for Khalil Gibran International Academy to finally have the facility that is conducive to a learning environment and to finally have a home. In the past decade, the school moved to multiple locations before settling in this 100-plus-year-old facility. Our children deserve better than what they have been given so far. This is their opportunity to finally have a gymnasium, a library, art room, music room, a new state-of-the-art science lab. Thank you for your consideration of this important project. And I also have multiple letters from community members who could not be here today.
Okay, if Ben Richardson could be next speaker, and Nick Cifuentes could join the speakers.
Good evening. Thank you for this hearing. My name is Ben Richardson. I am a board member of the Fort Greene Association, a parent member of the school leadership team of PS 38, and a member of the neighborhood committee of One Hanson Place. My position is that I am opposed to this project and ask the borough president to vote no with no exceptions, with no recommendations, and with no caveats, just as the community board did on behalf of the community. Yes, I live in One Hanson Place, so many here would call me NIMBY. NIMBY is a shorthand way of dismissing all those who live locally to a project and will be most impacted by it as not having the ability to evaluate it objectively. That is a label I reject outright. Everyone who lives in a community has a right to care about their community. That isn't NIMBY. It's being involved in the world that impacts your daily life. So anyone who's been here from a YIMBY organization this evening should identify where they live and what their B is. That would be helpful. So here's what I care about. This project will give 300, we guess, it's hard to calculate, $300 to $350 million in free air rights and land use to Alloy. It will also give Alloy access to the city's stellar AAA bond rating. Make no mistake, that is why we're here. It's about money. We don't know actually how much money this will gift Alloy because they won't really tell us. We've asked. We've met with them 100 times, according to them, but there's no transparency in the project financing. We'd love to know, but we can't. This is like buying a Mercedes and then being gifted 2 extra Bentleys because you have the money for a good lawyer. That's what's going on here. So if the solution to school seats will take a tower floor per seat, we need about 3,000
Okay,
tower
thank you,
floors.
sir. Your time has exceeded. Thank you kindly. Richard, please call the next speaker.
Thank you.
So
Thank
next
you.
speaker is Malik Coleman. If George Cambus could come up, and also Carol Rosenthal.
Good evening. I'm Malik Coleman. My dad went to school less than half a mile from 80 Flatbush. My mom grew up near 80 Flatbush, but they had to move out. They got jobs, different state, they moved. I went to school, lucky enough to move back to New York City, lived in the greatest borough, Brooklyn, but then I was lucky enough to win the affordable housing lottery, but it wasn't in Brooklyn. So I moved there, I loved there, but when I eventually start a family, I'd love to live in Brooklyn. And 80 Flatbush will allow 200 affordable housing units for families to live in downtown Brooklyn, one of the most accessible transit areas in the city, in the country, in the world even, and 700 market rate. Market rate units, they add to the supply, and and new market rate units cause the older units to drop in price. So eventually, some of the units will be affordable to more people. And then adding a school, building a new school, adding commercial space, not adding parking because it's steps away from Atlantic Terminal, those are all great things. So I just like to encourage the borough president to think about what we can do for the future, not about what has been for the last 30 years, for the last 40 years. My parents were here 30, 40 years ago, but they had to move out. But for me, for my kids, for my grandkids, for future generations, buildings like this on some of the greatest transit-accessible areas in the borough are good things. So I'd like to encourage the borough president to support that. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Chris, and we could also be joined up here by Stefan Kesters.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Mejia, and I'm a proud member of Bears Community Garden. This is not a project that cares about affordable housings, school or public spaces, but employing such claims as a way of gaining social and economic capital. This development is out of scale and has no regard for its surrounding community. It has one objective and one objective only: profit. We need schools, therefore we should build schools. Brooklyn doesn't have a lack of housing. We have a nearby development still at vacant market rate units. What we need is affordable, low-income housing. That's what we have a lack of. Brooklyn let's build affordable, low-income housing, not at the cost of 700 market rate apartments that cater to the well-off and denounce the needs of average working-class New Yorkers that, let me remind you, have built Brooklyn. So I say to Allo Development, people over profits.
Okay, if we could, speaker now is Nick Cifuentes, and if we could be joined by Gilda Caputo Hansen and Elizabeth Tallerman.
Hello, and thank you for your time. I'm Nick Cifuentes, Executive Director of Tri-State Transportation Campaign, and I'm here today representing Tri-State and the Riders Alliance, two local advocacy organizations working to improve public transit in New York City and the region. I'm here today as a transit advocate to express our support for the proposal by the Educational Construction Fund and Alloy Development to eliminate parking minimums at the proposed 80 Flatbush Avenue project. Our organizations have long supported the reduction or elimination of parking minimums for new development projects throughout New York City. New York's excessive requirement of space for parking in new developments, particularly developments that are in transit-rich communities, is an antiquated and anti-urbanist policy that encourages car ownership rather than investing in public transportation, production of affordable housing, and more sustainable forms of growth. A high rate of car ownership, in turn, leads to traffic congestion that slows bus speeds, increases air pollution, and compromises the growth and prosperity of our city. 80 Flatbush is adjacent to Atlantic Terminal and is within blocks of 12 subway trains, as well as several bus routes and the Long Island Railroad. It is hard to find a more transit-rich development spot in the 5 boroughs. Waiving the parking minimum at this proposed development site would encourage use of public transit at one of the city's largest transit hubs. Similarly, we should be encouraging dense development near transit hubs like this one. Recent data released by the Department of City Planning shows that our population has grown to over 8.6 million people. With our population on the rise, we need to encourage people to live near transit in order to improve road congestion. That means building densely near transit hubs like this one. We all know our subway system is in crisis, and last year we actually saw a decline in our subways with people opting to take cars instead. When that happens, we add to congestion that is choking our streets and costing us $20 billion a year in lost revenue, according to numbers from the Partnership for New York City. So in order to facilitate sustainable and intelligent growth, we should continue to encourage use of public transportation. And as we consider new development, we should be looking at ones like this one. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, the next speaker I have is George Cambis. Okay, do I have Carol Rosenthal, Stephen Kesters, Gilda Caputo Hansen, Elizabeth Tallerman. Okay, we'll go on to the next, haven't been called yet. Reggie Thomas, followed by W. Richmond, followed by Alex Walker, followed by Linda Rosenberg. Okay. Call. Okay, back to the beginning. Okay. They're going to be brought up. People. So again, Reggie Thomas, W. Richmond, Alex Walker, Linda Rosenberg, Jesse Lazar, Nelson Bakerman.
Just keep calling us.
Okay. Somebody's up.
Good evening. I'll be reading this statement on behalf of John Banks, who serves as president of REBNY.
Excuse me, sir, could you please
Sure.
state who you are?
Sure. Reggie Thomas, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at the Real Estate Board. REBNY is a broadly based trade association of over 17,000 real estate professionals active throughout New York. We support the rezoning of 80 Flatbush Avenue and Alloy development, which will provide the community with a new elementary school, cultural facility, affordable housing units, retail space, and 200,000 square feet of Class A office space. The mixed-use development site is situated adjacent to Atlantic Terminal, making it easily accessible to the community and visitors. The proposed development will bring a new cultural facility to the area, which will help strengthen and expand the Brooklyn Cultural District as a destination for the arts. Along with the Cultural District, Flatbush Avenue, one of Brooklyn's oldest commercial thoroughfares, is a high-density, accessible area that makes it an attractive location for businesses and retailers. Local residents will benefit from the influx of new retailers and companies through greater shopping, variety, and jobs. The developer is aiming for a 30% MWLBE workforce applied across the project from construction to post-completion. In total, the development will generate 1,500 construction jobs and 1,500 permanent jobs. Khalil Gibran International Academy, New York City's first dual-language Arabic high school, will move into a new state-of-the-art ADA accessible building, which will include the school's first gym and assembly area. In addition to the new facility, the project will include new public seats, which will address the school seat capacity in District 15. As the city's need for affordable housing continues, the as-of-right development at 80 Flatbush will offer 200 permanently affordable housing units at an average of 60% AMI. New market rate housing is crucial for the borough's continued growth. Alloy's 80 Flatbush Avenue development would benefit the surrounding community and the city with new educational facilities, affordable housing units, a new cultural center, and modern retail and office space. REBNY supports Alloy's development plans for 80 Flatbush Avenue. Thank you.
Again, could you state your name again for the record?
It's Reggie Thomas.
Okay, Reggie.
Reggie Thomas? Okay, thank you. We're going to recall names. People who are downstairs were already instructed to come up, but they're going to make sure that no one is downstairs. We'll just call names, and if you're called and you're here, please come forward in order to expedite.
Okay,
So recall
George
the names.
Canvas, Carol Rosenthal, Stephen Kesters, Gilda Caputo Hansen, Elizabeth Tallerman, W. Richmond, Alex Walker, Linda Rosenberg, Jesse Lazar, Nelson Bakerman, Hassan Sunny Debra, Ian Baker, I'm not sure about that.
It looks like Ian Brannon. Banbraw? Oh, that's Baker? It doesn't look like Baker. Is Ian here? Is Banbraanaw, it looks like. 482 State Street. All right, well, doesn't look, is Ian Baker here?
Okay, all right. Followed by Nijan Buchert. Beuchheikl, something like that. Followed by Enid Braun. Followed by Alan Mitchell. Followed by Jonathan Breck. You can state your name.
My name is Jesse Lazar.
Record your name?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead, we'll find
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Borough President Adams. My name is Jesse Lazar. I'm a resident of Park Slope. I've lived in Brownstone, Brooklyn for 11 years, and I'm here today to speak in strong support of the 80 Flatbush project. Some of the many changes we've seen to our borough and our skyline over the years are better than others. I believe this is one of the best ones we have seen so far. We've heard a lot about this project today. We know that more than 20% of the units in this building will be permanently affordable housing. We know that a brand new public elementary school will ease overcrowding. We know that a brand new Khalil Gibran International Academy will give a great school the facility that it needs and deserves, and that a new cultural institution in a preserved historic building will also be available. This is particularly dear to me. It's great to have new restaurants and movie theaters around here, but cultural facilities have deeper and longer lasting impacts on communities than commercial facilities. On top of that, the cultural institution will face Flatbush Avenue, which brings me to my next point. Flatbush Avenue is like Brooklyn's main street. It should be attractive, safe, and urbanistically active, not just a dead space between affluent brownstone neighborhoods. Another thing Flatbush Avenue is, a wide, traffic-clogged artery that is very close to a major transit hub, and every train line in central Brooklyn means that, as any urbanist will tell you, it's a place to put density. It is not a quiet street in the center of a sleepy brownstone neighborhood. It's plain to anyone who's ever been on it that a large building on Flatbush Avenue is not disruptive. In fact, if this isn't an appropriate place to build density, where is? In the last few years, upzoning has increased density in less wealthy, less white neighborhood contexts, perhaps without complaint from some of the community organizations and people who are here today. I can't imagine that density itself is the problem, therefore. After all, we do live in the densest city in America. So is it just density near our own homes that we don't like? But it's what enables us to have some of the community assets that are part of this project, which are publicly significant. They outlast individual homeowners. They outlast the ups and downs of the already astronomical property values enjoyed by some here today. Thank you, and thank you for supporting this project.
Okay, and thank you. And for the record, please thank you. You can applaud me, of course. Thank you. But for the record, both overflow areas are clear. So we will call the new names, and then we'll recall names again. But downstairs is clear. So downstairs is clear. So that means that the people are not downstairs waiting to come upstairs. We don't know. We're going to call all the names. Well, we're not finished yet. So we're going to call all the names, okay? Thank you. And if we miss you, you're still here. That's the good thing, all right? Please, we're going to just try to move along. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Reggie Thomas, followed by Nora McCauley, followed by Harry Trollson, followed by Claire Angelica.
Richard, can you call the next speaker?
Okay, so.
Hi, I'm Nora McCauley. I'm an involved parent at a local public school in Borum Hill, and I'm just going to basically go off book tonight from my prepared remarks because there are two talking points that I've heard consistently, and I'm going to urge Borough President Adams to think more broadly about these. As a former consultant, one of the first things I did when thinking about this project was to make a very large spreadsheet about all of the development that's been going on. I was focused on Councilmember Stephen Levin's, the southern portion of his district, which includes Borum Hill and downtown Brooklyn, and other neighborhoods as well. But within downtown Brooklyn and Borum Hill as well, there are 41 new developments since 2010 that are online already or will be online in the next several years. So that's 41 new developments, which include, which are all residential in downtown Brooklyn and Borum Hill. So saying that there's a lack of housing in these neighborhoods is slightly disingenuous. The other disingenuous point that I would like to make is everybody has said this is a transit hub, it's an enriched transit hub, and this is true. But more than anything, we need to reinforce and rebuild these transit stations. I was just walking by the current very low-rise building at 80 Flatbush the other day and overheard two workers leaving. One of that, our conversation was very loud because they were walking apart. One of them said, "Where are you going?" The other one said, "I'm walking to J Street because I can't handle the crowds." in Atlantic Terminal at rush hour. I can handle them in the morning, I can't handle them in the evening. So that's the current state of the building, much less anything. So I hope, build it as of right, keep it sane. Thank you very much.
Okay, we had Reggie Thomas, Harry Trolson, Claire Angelica, followed by Jay Marcus, followed by Shelley Hagan, followed by Daniel Carr. Okay, so I have Jay.
Hi, I'm Jay Marcus with Fifth Avenue Committee, and we are proud to support this project and also to be a partner to Alloy in developing the 200 affordable housing units, and also to help set up what I'm sure will be a very diverse group for the community advisory group. Affordable housing is something we heard a lot about tonight. It's also the #1 priority for Brooklyn Community Board #2. They noted that the rent has gone up between 2000 and 2015 from under $1,000 a month to $2,995 a month. And it's actually gone up even higher in this community board since that time, according to the Furman Center reports. And while there's been tremendous growth, mainly in the luxury sector, as a lot of people talked about tonight, 20% growth like between 2006 and 2018. Luckily, this community remains diverse, and I think that's why a lot of us live in New York City. This is the 8th most ethnically diverse city. A majority of people in this community board are minorities. Black, Hispanic, and Asian actually make up a majority in this community board still. And it's the 11th most economically diverse. And that includes 16% of people who are very low income. And so we're very excited that we're going to be able to have this opportunity to work with the community, including the many voices I was glad to hear tonight to talk about how we want to make sure we get to people who earn $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year, people who earn 40% of median, not just those who earn the 70 and 80,000% that some of the more recent apartments in CB2 are geared towards. So we're excited about it. I do feel this project will meet the affordable housing needs of the very low-income people and low-income people that were talked about earlier tonight. And we also think it has a lot of other community benefits as well. We do note that the #1 capital request of CB2 was a school, and this area
Thank you
is
very
great
much.
for its
Thank
culture.
you. Please, Richard, call the next
Okay,
speaker. Thank you.
Harry Charleston again, Claire Angelica Shelley Hagan. Yeah. No one else steps up? It's yours.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Hagan. I live in Clinton Hill. I belong to Preserve Our Brooklyn Neighborhoods and the Democratic Party. Thank you, Borough President Adams, for extending the time for this hearing to try to accommodate all the people who want their thoughts on this divisive project entered into the record. I am here tonight to urge you to vote a straight no. If the developer were straight, their application would be to build luxury towers. Alloy is not straight. They would be crazy to be in a city that itself isn't. The Real Estate Board of New York spends millions of dollars to influence the city council. The council can be expected to approve any ULURP application as long as it boasts community benefits. Council indignation would be profound if a 100% luxury project made it to the chamber floor. Rightly so. Opulence needs to pretend. Alloy are not stupid. Uriah Heep wasn't. You can ask why they want to block the western sky with a 1,000-foot tall tower, and they'll tell you with a straight face it's for affordable housing. How many people of marginal means do you think will enjoy the sunset over New York Harbor from balconies on the 70th floor? Ask Alloy why they think they can steal the edge of Borum Hill and give it to the downtown district. They'll tell you it's for a school. Ask why they've donated to the Brooklyn Ballet, Brick, and even the Landmarks Conservancy. No one loves culture more than Alloy. The CB2 Land Use Committee voted unanimously a straight no at the end of a night of voting on modest changes, the last of which, thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Next.
Okay, I have Daniel Carr. Going to run some names now. Rosalind Hubener, Betty, there you go, thank you. Susan Lerner, Dwight Smith, Genevieve Christie.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Carr, and my parents moved to South Portland Avenue in 1981. I grew up in Fort Greene, and I took the bus down Fulton Mall every day to my elementary school because, well, there was no elementary school that was good in Fort Greene when I was growing up. Hopefully this project changes that, and I support this project. At first, when all this development was happening in downtown Brooklyn, I was very opposed to it. I thought that more people would crowd the subways, push out local shops, and pretty much make our neighborhood a worse place to live. But exactly the opposite has happened. I grew up really right across the street from this site where the old BAM Plaza was. I would hang out there in the afternoon skateboarding with my friends after school. And, well, there wasn't much going on that intersection. Now, with the new development that's happened, there's a supermarket, and with Alloy's project, there'll be a school and more cultural institutions. I think what's important to understand here is the height that Alloy is proposing to build relative to what they could build as of right. They're already allowed to build a tall building. And you know what? They don't have to include any affordable housing in it. They don't have to include any community facilities. So if you want them to increase our cultural elements and the cultural fabric we have in the community, then give them more market rate housing, and they'll in turn be able to deliver back to us a school and other community elements. Also importantly, for any of you who haven't toured Alloy's other projects, they design their projects themselves, and they've recently delivered several award-winning projects in Dumbo. Go look at them. 1 John Street's beautiful, and I think that they would be able to deliver a project here that also is contextual with the neighborhood. Overall, I'm confident that this project will not only add to the neighborhood, but be contextual and a benefit to the community. Thank you.
Okay, Rosalind Hubener, and could be joined by Donna Cabas.
Thank you for the opportunity. I apologize, I had no time to prepare, so I'm Notice James. This may be rough. I live on corner of South Portland and Lafayette in Fort Greene, and none of us is against development. Development can proceed as of right. We're not against affordable housing in any way. We are for low-income housing. This project can accommodate low-income housing as long as it remains as of right. To address the economic benefits of this property and the jobs that pay well, all of the 41 buildings that are planned and those that have been built have delivered the economic benefits. They have all conformed to the zoning, the upzoning. So we will be getting economic benefits without overdevelopment. I have a long career, 30 years or more, as in real estate sales. I've been a real estate business owner for most of those years, and I have been a landlord for even longer than that, a landlord in the community. There is every publication in the real estate industry addresses the overabundance, the oversaturation of apartments. They are going unfilled. And there's even commercial developments are going unfilled as of this time. This is throughout all of the publications within the industry and through the New York Times. So there is, although there's population growth in Brooklyn, there is oversaturation of available apartments.
Okay, Betty now could come up, and then we could be joined by Betty Fibush.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak my thoughts. These are comments based on certain things that I've listened tonight. I'm an architect by training and construction manager for about 20 years, and I'm a current resident of One Hanson Place overlooking Flatbush. I'm originally from Queens, and I made a decision many years ago that I wanted to live in downtown Brooklyn because of the historic nature. I love buildings, and specifically that building. Couple things I want to mention. There are, Barclays has several phases of housing that has not been put up yet. High-paying jobs as far as people wanting to be downtown Brooklyn, that's subjected to what you feel and what you're willing to travel to for jobs. Rental versus homeowners. I am a homeowner. Rentals are transient people. They can come and go as they please. When you're a homeowner, you put your money where your mouth is, and you're more rooted to where you want to live. Brooklyn has a historic dignity, not subject, and it shouldn't be subject to dollar figures. Atlantic Flatbush Extension is a high traffic area. It's basically a highway with one stoplight. I've looked outside my window, that is my view, and I've seen people get hit there. To have children cross that area, I think it just doesn't make sense. As far as affordable, yes, we need affordable housing. Being the fact that I've worked in construction management for so many years, I'm all for housing, but let's just be clear. If it was about affordable housing, then the entire building would be affordable housing. The 80-20 comes about based on the funding. This is not what the developer wants to do. They're forced to do it. I understand the developer game because I worked for them many years ago. The last thing I want to mention is about sunlight. We understand what sunlight can do, and the plants are affected by it. We see it. We're affected by it too, okay? Because if you want to understand what the sunlight does, look at someone who's been put into a box for 30 days where they have no sunlight and see how they react. And I dare to say to anyone who sits here, have you ever taken a vacation where you've traveled for thousands of dollars and went to somewhere dark? You haven't. Thank you.
So Dwight Smith is next, and we can be joined by Donna Nicolino.
Good evening. My name is Dwight Smith, and I'm a longtime resident of Bourne Hill and Vice President of the Bourne Hill Association. I want to address an issue I remain confused about. The underlying premise of this proposed project's environmental impact statement and its findings. The EIS is an official document, and it is supposed to assess the impact of the proposed project on the neighborhood in which it would be physically located. That being the case, I'm confused as to why the developer, throughout this legal document, identifies the proposed project location as being in downtown Brooklyn neighborhood when, according to city planning, it is located on the northeast edge of Bourne Hill. Do facts matter? I'm also confused as to why the developer can legally self-designate the neighborhood in which he prefers to have his project's development impacts assessed, then hire a consultant to assess development projects on that neighborhood, and submit those findings and evidence in support of the project. In this case, assess the proposed project's impacts by the development standards of downtown Brooklyn plan rather than those of Bourne Hill in its transitional development zone. The EIS has approximately 75 references to the proposed project's impacts on the downtown development neighborhood. There are 8 references to Bourne Hill, noting it as a part of the study area, and most captions under photos. Again, do location projects matter? But setting aside the question of the legitimacy of the EIS because of its misidentified location, the developer also states that it seeks to meet the development objectives of the 2004 development plan. If so, what is the wisdom of undoing the plan's initial division for this southern edge of downtown as a development buffer zone to protect the border neighborhoods? I urge the Borough President to severely consider the negative long-term impacts of this project.
If Susan Lerner can now come up, and if Polly Horn can come up to join the speakers.
Hi, thank you. I'm Susan Lerner. I'm the Executive Director of Common Cause New York, and I'm also a Fort Greene resident. In full disclosure, Common Cause has a project called NY Commons because we're concerned about the way in which public assets are being stripped from public control. We are also supporters of a re-examination of the ULURP process, and I think 80 Flatbush is a perfect example of why ULURP has failed our communities. We have public input after the city and the developer have already decided what they're going to do. And then we are all forced to come out in major numbers screaming for changes. There is, as many speakers, both pro and con, have pointed out, the developer has the right already to put up a tower. So if the developer were really so publicly minded, and this were not about maximizing profits at the public expense, then why is it the affordable housing are in the smaller tower that will be built later? Why is the school an afterthought to be built later? Why is the high going up first? Because this is about money. This is about taking our tax dollars, and it is about taking public assets out of public control, because this is a public school that's being built that's not going to be owned by the public, not controlled by the public, and that is a problem. This project is a testament to everything that is wrong. If the 80-20 balance were the solution to affordable housing and anti-gentrification, well, we've been doing it for 12 years. Is our affordable housing crisis any better? And is gentrifying alleviated? No. This is a failed solution. 80 Flatbush is the best example of how it is failing us, and I and Common Cause New York strongly urge the borough president to reject this project and send the developer and the city back to the drawing board, as the Municipal Arts Society suggested, to negotiate a workable project in that space where we should have density, instead of this overbuilt and bad
please. Thank you,
precedent.
Susan.
And thank you for your patience.
Thank you kindly. Please, Richard, call the next speaker.
Donna Cambis, and then if we could be joined by Jenny Kane.
Good evening. I'm Donna Cambis. I've lived in Borum Hill since 1977. I'm a native New Yorker, for those people coming from Texas, Oklahoma, et cetera, et cetera. You want to know what the city was like years ago? Ask me. You've heard many comments tonight about development, overdevelopment. Walk around Brooklyn. It's too high. You're destroying our neighborhoods. The buildings that have gone up, number one, people have said there's a need for office buildings. Where were these people when the buildings such as Hoyt Horn, which used to be a city building, city occupied, was converted to housing? Where were those people when the buildings on Flatbush Avenue were built for housing? Where were those people who were saying that there's a massive demand for office space? Where were those people when the buildings on Court Street were converted to housing? Where were these people for the office demand? We've heard a lot. You've heard a lot about school. Yes, we need schools, but why squish in a small school? Why not take a larger footprint and build a school? Of course, if you walk around, you'll see what a terrible area that is for kids to cross. But be that as it may, if you need a school, build a school. If you need affordable housing, build affordable housing. But what is affordable housing? If you're making $20 an hour, you're making $38,400 a year. A third of that would go for rent. Maybe it's higher now. That would be $12,800. Where are those people going to live? I'm not talking about the kids who are coming in who work for techs, who can afford $4,000, $5,000, $2,000 a month. I'm talking about the person who takes care of your kids, the person who scrubs floors. Please reconsider this and think and vote no on this. Thank you.
If Genevieve can come up now, and then if we could be joined by Deborah Sutton. Do we have Genevieve Christie? You already spoke, so. You already spoke. Okay. Betty? It's some.
Betty Fibers?
Go ahead. Betty, yeah, Betty Fibers.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Betty Fibers, and I live in the Borum Hill neighborhood. Thank you to the previous community members who indicated that 80 Flatbush development as proposed is too high, too dense, and too much. We know that the development is fundamentally contrary to the long-range plan envisioned for the site as part of the 2004 downtown Brooklyn rezoning. Urban planning requires thoughtful zoning and neighborhood sensitivity in which there is a transition between downtown Brooklyn and Boerum Hill. However, what I really want to talk about is vibrations, and I don't mean good vibrations. Although the environmental impact statement referred to many environmental concerns that can be mitigated, it did state that vibrations cannot be mitigated, specifically the effect of the vibration on the historic building. This is not an unoccupied building. This is the Kahil Gibran International Academy. There are young people and adults inside. So the building is affected, but not the people inside? We understand that noise exceeding the noise impact includes the school site. We understand that the construction of new buildings will require extensive evacuation. We understand that construction will occur within 90 feet of the historic buildings and have the potential to directly affect architectural resources during construction. That's from the report. So how do we know that plaster or worse won't fall on the children? In the condition that the project proceeds as planned, the young people and adults will be in a building, in a construction site, with vibrations to the historic building they're in, not to mention the potential exposure to soil contaminants that are excavated, airborne particles, and noise. Sorry.
That's okay. We thank you very much. Okay. Richard, please call the next
I will
person.
submit the rest of
Yes, please do. Thank you. Nan,
Okay,
take it
we
from her,
have Donna.
please.
Donna, okay, and then can we join by, up here by, looks like Suna Klippinger?
Hi, my name is Donna Nicolino. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Fort Greene and a student at the Zen Center of New York City on State Street. I am opposed to the project as it's proposed. I just want to talk a little bit about affordable housing because part of what I do is try to help people find affordable housing that they can live in. I encourage all of you to actually go to the New York City Housing Connect website and look at the listings as to what counts as affordable housing. It can be kind of shocking, actually. As others have noted, it's based on area median income. From what I just did some quick Googling, I wasn't planning on actually speaking. The area median income for Boerum Hill, from what I found, is $91,000. 60% of that, as someone else mentioned, is $54,600 a year. So this is not going to help people in shelters. It's not going to help truly poor people. That's my concern. And I think when we've gotten to the point where average families can't afford, people making $54,000 can't afford housing and need a special program and have to be like kind of, edged in there, with quote unquote market rate housing. I think there's bigger problems, and I think the issues of gentrification and overdevelopment and displacement are real, and they need to be addressed, but they're systemic issues, and they're not going to be solved by this project. I agree with the others who say, if we need new schools, build a new school. Let's build truly affordable housing. I think that is important, and I'm not opposed to development. I'm not opposed to housing density. As other people have commented, the developer apparently has the ability to build. So I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Dolly, and the speakers I haven't called yet, I have Carolyn Hubbard, Commonwear, I think it is, Robert Gray, Grady Gilles, and Adrienne Delvigny. So, do we have Dolly here? Dolly, I'm sorry, Polly? Sorry.
Hi, my name is Polly Horn. I moved to Brooklyn 9 years ago from the mountains of East Tennessee. I'm now a renter in a townhouse on Dean Street and have been part of the meditation community of the Zen Center of New York City at 500 State Street at State and 3rd Avenue for the past 8.5 years. The neighborhood of Borum Hill has sustained my existence in this harsh, extreme environment of New York City through its lush vegetation, trees, human-scaled buildings, and vibrant, diverse community that thrives here. I'm speaking now to protect the character and integrity of our neighborhood. This project is not responsible and sensitive to its context and will completely overshadow our neighborhood. As an architect working in Brooklyn, I am part of this wave of new development in Brooklyn. I am not against development. I am for responsible, contextual, sustainable development. This project should integrate with its ecosystem, not crush it. The project could and should act as a buffer from the danger and noise of Flatbush Avenue, not exacerbate it. The Zen Center of New York City has been offering silence and stillness at 500 State Street for the past 15 years. How will this project affect our community-run temple? How many years of construction noise and vibrations will we have to endure? I understand the loading docks will face onto State Street just across the corner from our front doors. This back door of a mega structure will face directly across the street of 3- or 4-story townhouses. How will this affect what is, in my opinion, the most beautiful street in Brooklyn? I appreciate the reality of the impermanence of our buildings and our neighborhoods, which is exactly why I'm speaking out to protect this precious piece of earth.
Thank you.
Which we have
Thank you.
the honor to
Your
care
time
for.
has expired. Thank you very much. Richard, please call the next speaker.
Jenny Kane, followed by Deborah Sutton.
Hi, I'm Jenny Kane, and I'm a resident of Clinton Hill, and I've lived there for 8 years now after moving to the East Village in 1983. So I've had a long experience in New York City. I've seen how overdevelopment changes dramatically a neighborhood. In the 8 years I've lived in Clinton Hill, I've seen Myrtle Avenue just explode. I've seen downtown Brooklyn explode. This project is just way too big, and I agree with what everyone else who is opposed to this project has said already. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Deborah Sutton.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Sitton,
sorry.
and it's okay. I probably didn't write it well. And I am a seed of gentrification. I came here in the early 90s. My family always came here when we were young, when I was in the 70s. I mean, in the 70s and 80s. And Brooklyn was a place where black people could come and live and feel safe, you know. And I could go back to the 1776 history and tell you how New York City came to be, but it's a hodgepodge of people that weren't accepted anywhere else, you know. And when I hear these young people come in here and talk about the sleepy community, the sleepy brownstone community, and you know, you're so mean because these people are what made Brooklyn what it is. They made it desirable for you to come here. Without these people in these sleepy communities, you wouldn't want to be here. Because believe me, when the crack vials were on the street, you would not have wanted to be here. And when I see you walking up and down the street, you never say hi to me. You know, I've seen some of you turn away and run and scream like I'm a monster, you know. And as far as the affordable housing in my building, there maybe are 4 of us left. The rest of them are gentrifiers. But we're looking at the affordable housing, and it's either too low or too high. It's never in the middle. So my neighbor has had to raise her daughter in a very small apartment because she could not afford one of the newer units, and then the affordable housing was, she didn't qualify. But I can't say that I don't like development. I mean, I like history. That's why I'm here. But the one thing that I am concerned about, and my background is in engineering management, and I've worked with MTA, and I can, you know, proudly say that I'm part of the 2nd Avenue subway project, and it's up and running before I died, is the platforms are too crowded. The abatements that are going to these buildings need to be diverted to MTA, where MTA could fix the platforms.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Sitton.
Thank
Thank you, Ms. Sitton. Richard, call the next speaker. Thank you.
Clippinger.
Good evening. My name is Emma Clippinger, and I have lived on the 400 block of State Street for the past 5 or so years. I'm a public policy lawyer and throughout law school did eviction defense here in the community. I would love nothing more than to solve this borough and the city's affordable housing crisis, but this project is not that. I was actually sitting in the overflow room and was hoping everyone else would do all the talking, and just was finally moved to come up here and say something because it just pained me to hear affordable housing repeatedly invoked as a reason to support this project. As others have already said, though, while I've been waiting here, that this is not something that Alloy is doing out of the goodness of its heart, but is something that is required to do by law, as is the EIS. I have been very underwhelmed by all of those. I've been very underwhelmed by this entire process. As others have rightly pointed out, affordable housing is tied to the median income of the community in which it is. I did a quick Google on my phone before it died and saw that since 2010, Borum Hill, which is the neighborhood in which this project is located, average income has gone up by 58%. Ask anyone who lives in the neighborhood. These are all luxury apartment buildings, and they are actually vacant. As someone who lives on the 400 block of State Street, this project is going to be no fun for me. I would gladly give that 74-story monstrosity to low-income affordable housing if that is what it was. I really resent that we are being asked to choose between investing in public education and true low-income affordable housing as a way through this, through this huge building. This is public money. Let's use that public money on real low-income affordable housing. Let's use it to give the schools the facilities and the seats that they need. We do not need to do it through the vehicle of this building. Thank you very much.
Carolyn Hubbard, followed by Robert Gray.
Robert Gray, Carolyn.
Grady Gillies. Okay, who we have? Robert? Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Gregg. I grew up in Brooklyn Heights and recently moved to State Street, across the street from the proposed site. I'm opposed to this development because it doesn't adequately respect Borum Hill or address the community's needs. Take a moment to look around this room. It is beautiful and rich in history, and it's clearly been respected and taken care of such that we can enjoy it today. I don't believe dropping a glass building the size of the Chrysler Building in Borum Hill demonstrates any respect for the community. We must demand that developers pay respect to the neighborhood and contribute to meeting its needs. Remember, redevelopments are an opportunity to improve the community. We won't get an opportunity again for a lot like this. The stakes are too high, and we must get this right. I ask that we reject this development as currently proposed. Thank you.
Okay, Grady Gillies, followed by Adrian Davigny.
Hello, my name is Grady Gillies. I'm a resident of Cobble Hill, Brooklyn. As a recent transplant to Cobble Hill in the second half of 2017, I watched median prices in the neighborhood, median prices in rent drop due to recent development in downtown and the Flatbush corridor, which allowed more kind of affordable rents in adjacent neighborhoods. A housing crisis requires new housing of all types for all walks of life. We must acknowledge and identify development that is responsibly located near transit-rich corridors and gives back to the community in which it is located. We must also recognize that development in areas that can accommodate an increase in density allow other areas and Brooklyn neighborhoods to breathe. Make no mistake, profit will occur here, but we should consider that development that yields profit isn't always ill-conceived, and it can bring benefits to the community, including new educational and cultural facilities that have been mentioned, and additional housing, both market rate and affordable, that can currently be delivered with that profit. Let small and mid-rise density neighborhoods breathe by building high-density buildings where high-density buildings belong. I support 80 Flatbush and ask the Borough President to do the same. Thank you.
Okay, I have Adrian Davigny. And after that, I'm going to recall the names of the speakers that did not come up.
Hi, my name is Adrian Davigny, and I'm a Clinton Hill resident. As the father of a infant boy, one of the concerns my family has is public schools, the availability of classroom and the facilities and teachers. And I have to say, downtown Brooklyn is not in great shape in that regard. If one of the biggest benefits of 80 Flatbush, in my view, is the addition of 105,000 square feet of classroom space. How much is that worth? According to Alloy's estimate, which was made public, and I'm sure can be supported by numbers, that's worth $130 million. So if you're telling me, let's build schools in general, to accommodate all the kids in Brooklyn, great, who's going to pay for that? We're looking here at $130 million of public benefit, of benefit to the citizens. The affordable housing, I understand there's going to be 200 apartments that are earmarked for affordable housing. If your argument, the arguments of the people before me, was this is not going to solve the affordable housing problem, if you can build tens of thousands of affordable housing apartments, don't give us anything. We don't want anything. I'd rather not have a single apartment of affordable housing, let those 200 families that otherwise would have moved in, let them live in the hovel they're in now, but I don't want Alloy to make any money. We don't want that. We don't like that. Either everything or nothing. It's idiotic. The value of 200 apartments of affordable housing, again, is estimated around $100 million. So if you do the math, the benefit of the project is $230 million between the school rooms, the affordable housing, and the cultural space. So $200 million against what? Vibration and noise? How do you quantify that? The city's changing. Okay, I understand you're looking at the site and you don't want any dust and noise, but you live in New York City. You know, move to Oklahoma if you want it, if you don't want any dust or noise. So, you know, and if I can just conclude, I've never seen.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
In conclusion, I support it.
You could email us remaining remarks. So I'm going to call the people who we called before they didn't come up. Just make sure you're in the room. George Cambis, Claire Angelo, Carol Rosenthal, Stefan Custers, Gilda Caputo Hansen, Elizabeth Tellerman, W. Richmond, Alex Walker, Linda Rosenberg, Nelson Bakerman, Hassan Sunny Debra, Ian Backbrahat, not going to get that. I'm going to try that one again.
Oh, that was Baker, remember? They said Ian Baker, but he didn't look like it.
Okay. Nurshan Buchik, Enid Braun, Alan Mitchell, Jonathan Breck, Jesse Webster, Angela Pinsky, Matthew Matty, Patty Hagan, Rebecca Siegel, Harry Charlson, and Carolyn Hubbard.
Where's the name of Lucy?
Lucy was the name that, okay. You said Genevieve Christie? Okay, so you want to come up? We'll let you do that.
So Lucy Coteam is speaking on behalf of Genevieve Christie. If there's anyone else who wanted to have their voices heard, or voice heard, you can just please come up now. So this way we'll make sure that we have everyone included, if you haven't already spoken. Okay, so this will be the last speaker for the evening. State your name and who you're speaking for, please.
Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you.
opportunity. I am speaking for Genevieve Christie. Anybody who knows her knows she's a very elegant lady. I'm sorry, I'll do my best. These were some talking she gave me. She said, there's not an infinite capacity at Flatbush Avenue. Zoning, the 6.5 zoning that was certified is plenty of height and bulk for this area. Two, a point was made, the developer already said they're not including parking, but that doesn't mean there won't be any cars. With 900 plus units, mostly market rate or luxury, there will be plenty of Amazon, Fresh Direct, UPS, FedEx, and every other delivery service that exists. Three, the subway, as we know, is already over capacity. Ask anyone at 8 a.m. on that dangerous platform. Four, there was no mention of the expected development of the Modell and PC Richards sites, which is expected to bring in thousands of workers and employees, which will add to the already overflow at the Atlantic Avenue subway. And five, a 350-seat elementary school is a boutique school, which will have limited resources to offer its students, much fewer than a much larger school can offer, and it's not economically efficient. For instance, you have to pay a principal of a 350-seat school the same amount you have to pay the principal of a 700-person school, and the same is true with all the other specialists who might come into the school. So it's a very inefficient use of space, and it's offering a school that is not like what we think of when we think of a school in New York with a big play yard and an auditorium and a gym and all those other facilities that we like to think of as part of an elementary school. So thank you. I wish Genevieve didn't have to run off. I did what I could. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then we're going to have Shelley Hagan read a quick remark from Patty Hagan.
My sister couldn't be here, Patty Hagan. She had to leave. She is opposed to this project. No to the project.
So I'm going to make one quick statement before I do the Borough President's closing. You all have been a tremendous, tremendous audience, very respectful. I thank you for listening. I was a little disappointed because we had the gavel. I thought I was going to get to bang it. So Borough President Adams would like to remind those viewing on the website that timely comments can be submitted by email to askeric@brooklynbp.nyc.gov. The Borough President would also like to take this opportunity to remind you that the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on this item. The hearing on this item is now closed. Thank you for participating in this public hearing. Borough President Eric L. Adams will review the application we heard today and will soon submit his recommendation to the City Planning Commission. So on behalf of Brooklyn Borough President Eric L. Adams, again, we thank you. Have a good night. Yes, now you can clap for yourselves.
As long as you want.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you?